All right, good evening. I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Haymarket Planning Commission for Monday, September 21, 2020. Roll call, please.
Walker? Here. Weir?
Aye.
Cottle?
Here.
Hallett? Here. Fenye?
Here.
Corral?
All right, if we could all please stand for a pledge of allegiance, remain standing for a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, moment of silence, please. All right, you may be seated. Thank you. All right, first thing we're going to do is when we get to the agenda items, number 7, we're going to go ahead and bump up the Van Meter site plan for 14850 and 14860 Washington Street and 6701 Hunting Path. That way we don't keep them too late, and then we will go through excuse me, the SUPs on Jefferson Street and the proffer and the QBE SUP application for 30 condos, 14600 Washington Street. So at this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing for public comment. First thing we're going to do is we're going to do the public hearing for SUP 6611 Jefferson Street. I have 3 people signed up. I see there's more. Is there another list back there?
No, that's all.
Okay, all right. So at this time, if you could come up, give us your name and your address. If you could limit your comment to 5 minutes. I think we also have some emails that need to be read into the record. Is that correct?
The emails are for public hearing notice 2, proffer amendment at 14600
Okay.
Washington Street.
All right, so this is just for the SUP. All right. So at this time, Mr. Payne, if you would come up, please.
I believe all those that are on the list to sign up are speaking on the proffer amendment. I don't believe there's anybody that's interested in speaking.
Okay.
Possibly Mr. Kennedy, the applicant, is here.
All right, let's go ahead and get him up, please.
Hi, I'm Jerry Kennedy. Been a long time since I've stood before this august group, many, many years. I'm just here tonight to request that the SUP for Religious Assembly for 6611 be moved forward for approval to the Town Council. The building has served most of its life as a church. Shepherd of the Hills Lutheran Church bought the building in 1999. And practiced as a church for about 15 years there. We bought the building, KHP, who I represent, bought the building in 2006, and the church continued to operate for many years after that. We had 2 other churches in there as well. What we're requesting is permission for a church who is leasing the basement space, which was occupied by Haymarket Food Pantry for 3 years until recently when they moved to another space. Both are 501Cs, the food pantry and the church. The church has very little impact on the building. There are 10 families in the church, about 30 to 35 people in attendance for their services. The building is severely underutilized, has a very large parking lot that's just not used and won't be. Most of the office space tenants are now operating a good portion of their work out of their homes. The largest tenant, Joe Gibbs, has the Youth for Tomorrow and he's permanently rearranged, so they're doing telemedicine largely from home. So there's very little impact on the building. The church operates at off hours, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock for an hour, Saturday night, 7 o'clock for 2 hours, and Sunday, 4 o'clock for 2 hours. So it's a non-offensive at all use of the building. We don't even see it as a change of use. It's a 301C to a 301C. And the building's always been used as a church. In fact, it used to have a cross on it that was permitted by the town, and signage for Shepherd of the Hills Church. At the time Shepherd of the Hills bought it, the code, which I've sent over, the 1999 code, didn't even address SUPs for religious assembly. There was no such thing. It wasn't a by right use for B1, nor was it a special use identified. The church was granted a business license, which it carried for those 15 years, 5 or so of which we owned the building. But there was no SUP issued. It was just issued as part of their permitted license. So we don't have an SUP to say, here, this is, what the building is used for, but it was utilized as a church all during that time. So my request is that, on behalf of KHP, the request is that you move the SUP forward for positive recommendation to the town council.
All right, thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Congratulations to you all this is your new assignment, or those who are returning. I know it's a tough job. Thanks for what you're doing for Haymarket.
All right, anybody else like to speak on the SUP for consideration, excuse me, for 6611 Jefferson Street? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the,
Could we go ahead and close that public hearing then?
we can. I do have a motion to close the public hearing.
You just close it.
All right, it's closed. Moving on. Public hearing notice number 2, proffer amendment 14600 Washington Street. Mr. Payne, and then to follow Mr. Brandell.
Good evening, Jim Payne, 6680 Fayette Street, a dog's day out, and I wish you could say it's been a long time since I've spoken before the board or the committee or whatnot, but I remember it well. I'm here tonight just to talk about the proffer. I know you got 100 and some pages, big, long plan, but I just want to talk about the proffer because that's what it's about. I got stuck on page 19, and that was where it says there is an active lease, 10-year lease that is in place with Parks and Recreation. So I was kind of confused. They're taking 4.51 acres that's currently used for, I guess, baseball field, Parks and Rec, and they want to put it down to 0. So I'm kind of concerned if Parks and Rec is not using that, and if so, they need to provide some sort of a documentation or testimony. I don't know how that works. I did read that. I guess that Emily contacted them, and they were actually utilizing that. So I don't know. That might have been ironed out, but I believe until that's ironed out, how to move forward. I know they have a development plan, and a lot of people are probably going to talk about that. The parking on Blight, the dumpster pads, the ingress-egress perceived issues. I'm sure that will be scrutinized heavily by you guys and the rest of the residents. But that's all that I wanted to address, and I do thank you for listening to me, and I wish you the best of luck. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Brandell.
Hi everyone, good to be back here. Yeah, Justin Brandell, 6762 Sycamore Park Drive, just off of Blythe Street in that little community over there. We moved in about a year and a half ago, and we love the area. The way it is now is one of the reasons that we decided to move there. We like the openness of it and the safety aspect of it as well, and we really appreciate the parks, the improvements of the park that have been done over there. The playground is much appreciated. But But I would like to express some of our concerns, both my family's and a number of the other neighbors that I know have the similar concerns with the QBE Business Park property development plans, and including all of its aspects at 14604 Washington Street. Our biggest concern is the introduction of excessive traffic that would be done to Blight, with the plans to have ingress and egress on that street. And the biggest aspect of that would be the introduction of drivers that are under the influence of alcohol, which pose obviously great risk to the health and safety of the residents, more specifically the children that we know play up and down there. My children, they travel to their friends' houses up and down that street. And I can guarantee you that it's going to happen. So I know that there's a Mexican restaurant over there in that business park now that serves alcohol. When that license to serve alcohol was given, which I understand process-wise, you know, an opportunity is given to the community to vote or voice concern on whether or not that business who applied for a liquor license should have it. But at the time that that business was given that license, there was no entrance or exit on Blight Street. So it seems like it would be a foul of sorts to then make an entrance and exit onto that street that leads to the community, you know, knowing that there's an alcoholic beverage serving restaurant there. And of course, any restaurant that, or other store that decides to apply for a license, you know, that moves in there and wants to serve alcohol, that would be another concern, just increase the amount of drivers under the influence that would go on and off of Blight Street. So that's our biggest concern, is the health and safety of the residents, especially the children that we have there. There are other, you know, little more aspects to it, but that's definitely our biggest concern, and that applies to the entire project as a whole. So, any questions? Great. All right, I really appreciate the opportunity to voice our concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else would like to speak on the proffer amendment for 14600 Washington Street? Just come up, state your name and address. We'd love to hear your comments. All right, seeing none, we will close. Well, you have the emails. Okay. Okay.
This one is from Jim McGuire. Hello, I would like to first ask, how would this benefit the community? Do we not already have an abundance of retail and unused buildings? The purpose of the original proffer was clear. Has that changed? Are our children destined to have to search for open space just to play outside? The number of kids that have used these fields would have never known the value of teamwork and benefits of just playing sports. Do not let greed overcome common sense. Keep Haymarket everyone's hometown. Please let my comments to be read and recorded at the meeting on Monday. Thank you, Jim McGuire. Hello, my name is Nick Polari. I live at 6740 Blight Drive, but I am stationed in Korea and in the Air Force as a civil engineer for the next year while my family has stayed in Haymarket. The bottom line for my comments is to urge the Planning Committee to deny the proffer amendment. The QBE owner has big plans for the property which he needs the next 3 years to develop properly versus trying to amend the agreement to develop that green space now. The owner entered into an agreement with the town and we need to see it through until it expires August 13, 2023. The town has 3 years to work with the owner to get the B1 design that fits our town ordinances and reduces the impact to the adjacent residences. Robinson Manor residential development is being built right behind QBE. The Smith property was allowed to also add residential in a commercially zoned block of town. We are letting the town be developed like towns closer to the city, which turn out high-density residential units. People move to Haymarket to get away from these high-density residential units with street parking. Haymarket needs more commercial development, not more townhomes. That was the intent of repurposing the old school. We do not want to lose the small-town feel and uniqueness of Haymarket. I feel many of the standards of the zoning ordinance are not met and are reasons to deny the development in the current form. The current plan has adverse effects on QBE neighbors. I encourage people to review many of the comments made by the applicant back in the June 7, 2017 Planning Committee video found on the Town of Haymarket site located at this link below. Significant capital investment would need to happen on Blight Drive. The QBE owner needs to be liable to improve all roads and utilities if he is going to significantly change the land use. The parallel parking is a line of sight concern. Parking is allowed in front of the homes on Blight, but with added parallel parking on the opposite side of the road would now narrow the lane as well as create blind spots. Backing in and out of my driveway under these conditions when large events have occurred in town at the QBE site has impacted my ability to enter onto Blight safely. The applicant promised multiple times to work with the neighbors to reduce impacts to them in the June 7, 2017 discussion. But unfortunately, these recent updated 2020 plans were not openly discussed with the neighbors. It was found out only when my wife asked the town about the proffer amendment notice she received a few days before the June 2020 planning meetings and right before the outgoing town council left their seats on July 1. The consensus was overwhelming in the June meeting that the town was against the new 2020 QBE plan, and although the owner has made some changes, now it is by and large the same plan with still many of the same questions and details to be answered. Additionally, at minute 52 of the video, the road proposed by QBE that enters Blight is to satisfy a fire access road requirement only, not a primary entrance/exit as now indicated by the owner. Only a fire access road was approved by the town. I am concerned when the QBE owner now changes the road's purpose for a primary access road. The owner also mentions in the 2017 video that Blight can take only 4,000 vehicle trips a day, and that in his calculations in 2017 were 1,171 trips a day. What is the expected trips now with the new plan? It was also mentioned in the 2017 video, as I understood it, was that QBE's owner's engineers only looked at the design tables and that no traffic study was officially accomplished. The updated plan has removed the landscaping screening on Blight that was in the original development plan. Which side of these commercial buildings will be the front? Will my view from the house, which currently looks at nice ball field/green space, turn into looking at the rear of a commercial building with dumpsters and the lack of landscape screening? What is going to happen to the historic building Cookies and Cream is occupying? There are a lot of questions that need to be clarified, and we can get to something that meets the town ordinance and zoning, but also does not negatively impact the homes/neighborhoods around QBE. The town approved the use of the residential units in the Smith property, even though zoned commercial. We keep changing what has already been zoned as commercial to add more residential. I have been asking for years while I was on planning committee for the town to study if the ratio of commercial to residential is balanced. I feel it is not balanced, and allowing more residential in a commercially zoned location takes from the intent of the town and does not meet what the citizens of Haymarket desire. Let us follow our town zoning and stop allowing these multiple residential SUPs to be approved. The town planner highlights many of these issues with the current QBE 2020 plan. I only mentioned a few issues in this letter, but many of the other issues are as concerning. The original intent was to revitalize the side of town and to take the old school and develop it and continue to use the green space for the use of the town/county. The QBE owner was able to buy the school at an incredibly cheap price at only the cost of just 2 of the homes on Blight. The purchase of the QBE property came with strings attached to include proper stipulations. This was the deal then, so let's not amend the deal now. The homeowners in this town are also investors. We have a right to protect our investment, like the QBE owner, and the proposed plan is going to negatively impact our home values, safety, and way of life if the current 2020 plan goes through. Please deny the proffer amendment and let's work with the owner to develop this part of town well, as the decision has a 75 to 100-year impact potential. Once those new buildings are built, the town lives with the decision we make in 2020 until possibly 2100 or longer, depending on how long those buildings will last. Will we regret not taking more time to develop this plan properly? I know we would. Thank you, Nick Polari.
All right. Submitted here within is my complete objection to the proffer amendment application for QBE Business Park property and also GDP, which borders Blight, Haymarket, Virginia. The construction of the four-story...
Can you tell us who this is, please?
This is Ronald Phillips Sr. He signs off with it, so that's where I was going. The construction of the 4-story mixed residential and commercial building with underground parking and commercial retail units, pods, and ultimately an unneeded strip mall. The addition of the entrance exit lanes from to the property off Blight and culminating with 31 parallel parking spaces are not acceptable. Current town council does not remember several years ago the legal battle that our community engaged in to prevent the construction of 360 plus condominiums being constructed. As our sales contract stated, only single family homes could be constructed around our homes. This could certainly be opposed by all the new single family homes recently constructed on Blight, as they would be greatly affected by QBE and GDP proposals. This certainly precludes and prohibition of 4-story mixed residential and commercial retail units, pods, and strip mall. Secondly, parking will cause negative impacts to our safety, medical emergencies, health, welfare, morale, daily living, property values, and we must also recognize that the recent construction of single-family homes on Blight Drive will be affected to the greatest extent possible. The $500,000 homes will be decimated in value, and future sales will be decimated in value. No family would want to purchase these homes due to the inclusion of QBE and GDP in their front yards. On Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday, observed the sporting venue at QBE, and over 300 children and family members were utilizing the facilities for baseball, softball, and soccer. These facilities are urgently needed for our children, and midget league football and soccer are entering the season, and our children must be provided these facilities. How can we take away from our most precious children who aspire to compete? I believe our community owes it to the youth a venue for sports and not a strip mall. Do you want this space to be lost? And for the sake of our children, this space must be used as originally intended. Fighting traffic, autos, etc., and elimination of such needed recreational space, land, venues from the town of Haymarket, there will be overspill parking in our community by business patrons, individuals residing in or visiting the condominiums, and those employed by businesses. Was approached in writing by Connor Leak of Haymarket Properties Group to walk with me through plans they have for future development of commercial property at 14600 Washington Street, Virginia. It believed that this is a solicitation, which I declined, could be questionable as a member of his family perhaps have been elected officials in the town of Haymarket. Copy of letters attached and enclosed. I vehemently oppose the proffer amendment application, QBE Business Park and General Development Plan, which borders Blight Drive, Haymarket. Ronald J. Phillips, Sr. And it's 6700 Sycamore Park Drive. And he attached a letter that reads, my name is Connor Leak with Haymarket Properties Group. I am reaching out to you and your family because you spoke during the June 29th, 2020 Haymarket public hearing in regard to our commercial property located at 14600 Washington Street in our wonderful town of Haymarket. I wanted to extend an invite to either have a call with you or for you to come over to our property so I can walk through what plans we have for the future of our property. I would also like to show you what we have completed with the restoration of our current historic building. This would also be an opportunity for you to share your concerns with our leadership team, give us your input on our project, and ask all questions you would like. Please feel free to reach out to me directly on my cell phone or by email, and he provided both. Best regards, Connor Leak, President, Haymarket Properties Group.
Joseph Namgoon, 6744 Blight Drive, Haymarket, Virginia. Mayor, Town Council, and Planning Committee. My name is Joe Namgoon. My family and I live on Blight Drive. Unfortunately, due to work, I cannot make this meeting in person. However, I am writing to you again because this is very important to us and to my neighbors. We are 100% against this proffer amendment application. We feel that the safety, welfare, health, daily lives, and property values will have a negative impact if the proffer amendment application is approved. Here are a few of my reasons. Number one, there are 7 children on Blight, all under the age of 10. Who is going to guarantee their safety with the increase of traffic? By adding parking in the new entrance/exit on Blight, you will increase traffic, not to mention add to the speeding issue we currently have. Number two, with additional parking on a residential street for customers of Zandra's or any future bar or restaurant, there will be an increased chance of accidents on Blight by drunk drivers. Not to mention our daily lives will be disturbed by the noise of drunken customers and the sound of loud car exhaust systems in front of our homes late at night. As I stated above, we have 7 children under the age of 10. We do not want them to be woken up in the middle of the night by loud drunks, witness any fights or crimes, etc. that is associated with bars. And number 3, these potential changes will decrease our property value. Who would want to live in a home/raise a family on a busy street and deal with noise from bars/restaurants 7 days a week? This side of town is residential and should stay residential. If this is approved, we plan to appeal it as laid out in the zoning ordinance. Thank you for your time. Joe, Gian, and James Namgoon. Dear Town of Haymarket Planning Commission members, this is Greg and Yvette Terry, Dogwood Park Lane. We hope this finds you and your families well. As residents of the wonderful town of Haymarket for almost 16 years, we are writing this email to express our concerns about the construction plans at the QBE property. We have several questions and concerns about the construction, including, number 1, we humbly request that you please consider the concerns of the residents and how this construction will negatively impact our lives. We also ask that you consider if you would want this next to your home and think about the long-term effects of more noise, crime increases due to strangers constantly in your neighborhood, increases in rodents and trash from the retail pads. Number 2, the construction of this property will disrupt the lives of residents, especially those who work at home. Number 3, it is already a challenge getting in and out of the neighborhood with only one way in and out and 31 parking spaces right next to our homes, and the constant extra traffic of people using the only access in and out of our neighborhood will create further issues. Extra noise will be generated from cars parked in those spaces, and the sense of security will be lost because of the constant influx of strangers parked near our homes, and litter will probably become an issue as well. Number 4, the construction process, especially the underground parking, will cause an enormous amount of chaos, and this is not fair to the existing residents. Number 5, why can't the developer just add on to the existing building? This way there will still be green space for the residents to enjoy. Number 6, since there are multiple empty retail pads in the area, why is there a need for this development? Remember, once the construction is there and it remains empty, we can't get the green space back. Number 7, is it possible for the developer to work with the community to keep the green space on Blight Drive and build something smaller on the first baseball field closer to the main highway? That way people could still access via the existing access off of Highway 55. It is our sincere hope that the town of Haymarket and the developer will understand that the majority of residents have expressed that they do not want this huge development or feel as if it is needed. It will create a host of issues for current residents and will destroy the tranquil environment of our neighborhood and the small town feel that so many of us love. Our homes are supposed to be our peaceful havens, and we should be able to come home after work and be able to enjoy our time there without worrying about extra noise and traffic. This project does not fit in our residential area, and we hope and pray that you think about the long-term effects of a project of this magnitude and how it will disrupt the stability of our peaceful and beautiful community. We as residents of the great town of Haymarket only want the best for this area, and we really hope that you will consider the concerns of its residents. Thank you very much. Sincerely, Greg and Yvette Terry. Ms. Henry, I want to vehemently oppose the proffer amendment application under consideration and urge that it be denied. This will destroy the surrounding neighborhood and eliminate recreation for hundreds of families and individuals. I would be directly affected as my development is adjacent to Blight Drive. The fact that such an application is even being considered is appalling. Dave O'Mara, 6717 Sycamore Park Drive. Kathy Passanello, 6895 Track Court. Please deny the special use permit and reject the proffer amendment statement for the property at 14600 Washington Street. My grandson played, and now my granddaughter is playing softball in those fields. We need to keep some green space so our future athletes have places to play. I hope at the 10-year mark the county will have the option to renew the lease for those fields. I also feel we have more than enough residential units being built all around us. Enough is enough. We need more businesses, not more residents. Respectfully, as a town-paying taxpayer, Kathy Passanello. Jillian Polari. Hi, Kim. If you could please enter the comments below for the record. As a resident of one of the potentially affected homes on Blight Drive from tonight's decision, I implore the Planning Commission and the Town Council to do what is right for the residents and vote no to the special proper amendment that is being sought to remove the ball fields at QBE property. After a rushed secretive session in June during the previous administration, we now know that tonight's vote is about so much more than just removal of the ball fields. The ultimate goal is a highly developed 4-story residential and commercial building with underground parking garage, a large strip mall, removal of the historic Cookies and Cream building, 31 parallel parking spaces on Blight Drive, add an ingress-egress on Blight, and a potential future drive-through request. The issue was such an overwhelming no from the residents back in June, and it is still the same overwhelming no today. Nothing has changed. Residents' concerns are being ignored by the seeker of this proper amendment yet again. The plans that would be sought if the proffer is allowed to be pushed through are not right for the community, not right for the residents, and not right for the town. Behind the QBE property, all of the land and trees are currently being raised for a huge development on Gainesville border, which will increase congestion on the Haymarket side as well. We need to consider that that is already happening and that there is future reason to put a stop to this now. This is the last of the green spaces left in the town, other than the playground, which has not much green space left either when it is filled with parked cars. The land in question was purchased for just over $1 million, which is less than the price of about 2 single-family homes in town. And the contract stipulated that the ball fields must be preserved for 10 years. The contract must be served out in full as the clearance price for the property, and the land was given with conditions. That contract needed to be followed to receive the astonishingly low price. No special treatment should be given, and the contract should be fully fulfilled in its entirety. The residents who purchased their homes in these safe and quiet neighborhoods in town had zero expectation of being forced to sit in traffic to simply exit their streets that only has one way out for multiple areas, an intersection being built with dangerous conditions right in front of their driveways, making it dangerous to exit their own driveways and also dangerous for children to play outside their homes. Do not want more vacant retail spaces by the way of a new strip mall if the town already has plenty of vacant retail spaces in other areas, and do not want the extreme noise, light, and environmental pollution in their front yards by the ultimate goal of a mini Gainesville gateway and Haymarket by way of this proffer. If anyone wanted these things in their front yards, they would have bought in the city. The town of Haymarket is a special rare gem in Nova and should be preserved. This is the last of the true green spaces left in the town, and it should be preserved as long as possible. And any other future plans sought to be done rationally and with the residents most affected in mind and actively participating, remembering that the resident homes in these nearby neighborhoods were built here first. If this green space gets taken away or massive things go up, you can't get it back. I implore the Commission and Council to consider the health, safety, way of life, and properties of the residents and vote no to this proffer. Thank you, Jillian Polari. Good afternoon. This is from Donnell Reyes at 6736 Blight Drive. I would like to just be on the record strongly against this development. It's completely unnecessary in this area of the town. The amount of traffic this development would add to Blight Road is unprecedented and quite disrespectful to the community, as nobody in the community is asking for this. There is literally 100+ townhomes being built right beside this area, VM Construction, I believe, on both sides of Piedmont Center Plaza. We don't need further development. The Piedmont Center Plaza has over 50% of its retail space vacant. There is no demand in this area for more retail. I'd like to ask anyone present if they would like an intersection to be built directly in front of their home. The plan shows a street intersection right in front of my property. I'm not asking for this to be moved. It's quite shocking that someone would be so inconsiderate to throw a road that would have 100 cars a day right in front of anyone's home. Again, Donnell Zapata, 6736 Blight Drive Road. Debbie D'Alessandro, 14947 Madison Court. Dear Planning Commission, this letter is in reference to the application by QBE to amend their proffer agreement with the Prince William County Parks and Recreation Department. and the development of that property. I have lived in the town of Haymarket for many years, and I, like many others, love our community. We love the mom and pop shops and the small businesses that just add to the desirability of this area. Over the last couple of years, we've experienced the addition of chain restaurants and now a new hotel coming. You can see the addition of Walmart and shopping has added to the traffic congestion through our town. I am aware that this area is not part of the town of Haymarket, but you can see that the continued development within the town will only bring traffic more through the area. When I look at the town of Haymarket sign, everyone's hometown, will no longer be relevant, as I cannot believe that people that bought homes here are looking forward to a shopping center, a parking garage, and more residential condos across the street from their property. I urge the Planning Commission stick to the original zoning for this property and not allow the development of this property. Thank you, Debbie D'Alessandro, 14947 Madison Court. James and Maureen Carroll. Dear members of Planning Commission, the recreational fields at 14600 Washington Street are used and enjoyed by many of the town residents. It was our understanding that Prince William County and the owners of QBE had an agreement to lease these fields for 10 years for the enjoyment of local residents. The following is quoted from the agenda packet and refers to a discussion between town planner Emily Lockhart and the Prince William County Parks and Rec Department. The county explicitly stated that the fields are in use and they hope to continue the use of the space for time to come. The zoning amendment to reduce the proffer to 0 acres is totally unacceptable. Please deny the special use permit to allow the proffer amendment statement for the property at 14600 Washington Street. Sincerely, James and Maureen Carroll.
This is John Tully. I'm requesting that my attached correspondence regarding the above titled proposal under consideration by the town of Haymarket Council and Planning Commission be recorded and read aloud at tonight's scheduled meeting. My profession requires frequent travel, and I'm scheduled to depart from Lincoln, Nebraska in early afternoon today, Monday, 9:21 a.m., and therefore not able to be present at tonight's scheduled proceedings. I am copying the members of the Planning Commission to respectfully ensure they are aware of my position in advance of the proceeding. Please let me know if there are any other steps I must take to guarantee consideration of my input despite my unavailability to attend in person. Respectfully, John. And the subject line was Planning Commission meeting, request for entry reading into the record.
Okay, next one, just 2 more. William Wallace, 14808 Cypress Park Lane. Ms. Henry, I'm writing to you regarding the 9/21/2020 meeting, the planning board to take the request from QBE Sean Landry for proffer amendment for the aforementioned property. As a resident of Cypress Park Lane, I am vehemently opposed to these plans. Being that I am in the high-risk group, it is not in my best interest to attend this hearing, but I would request my voice be heard. The additional traffic and parking on Blight Drive would make leaving my subdivision worse than it is already. The addition of the subdivision just beginning construction plus the requested shops and housing on QBE property would put the 2-lane road on severe overload. Mr. Landry has stated that the parallel parking being proposed would be beneficial to the area and an improvement to the current parking. He has posted a picture of one truck parked on Blight as an example of the improvement. Having lived here longer than Mr. Landry has owned the property, I can tell you that the only time there is a large number of vehicles parked there is on Haymarket Day. One day out of the year is certainly bearable as opposed to a daily occurrence from the overflow parking from the proposed residences and stores. Using his property as the center, there are currently 21 vacant stores within 1 mile, so I certainly feel we need more stores. Really? I am sure that under the current economic conditions, that number unfortunately could grow while the new buildings remain vacant. And what about the homes that will be facing this 4-story building? Stores bring dumpsters, the residents bring more traffic, the families need places to play. How long will it be before the rest of the property is developed? The current businesses in the old QBE building will also need parking, which will end up creating problems on Blight and the surrounding neighborhood. How many of these vehicles use the surrounding residential streets to turn around to exit from the parallel parking spaces? The current roads do not warrant the addition of more vehicles, as an area is in no way the existing roads can widen, add traffic lights? No, not the answer. Between the preschools and the elementary schools in the subdivision, only starting construction, I feel a traffic study should be conducted which will tell us this addition is a bad idea. I am requesting that my comments and concerns be read aloud and recorded during citizens' time. Logic says this is a bad idea. Thank you, William Wallace. P.S. Let us not forget about the hotel that is yet to be built. Last one. Larry Schultz, 6732 Blight Drive. Town Clerk, I strongly object to conceding the recreational field of 4.51 acres to QBE. This field provides a nice buffer between Blight Drive and the businesses in the QBE building. I strongly object to building a 4-story mixed residential and commercial building which includes spaces for small businesses. Such a building would require entrance and exit lanes onto Blight Drive and add 30-some parallel parking spaces the entire length of Blight. This would turn Blight Drive into a commercial street instead of being a residential street as it is now. As a resident on Blight, I would be directly impacted by the increase in traffic, the resulting traffic noise and congestion. Many people, especially families, walk along the street during the day and the evening. More spaces for small businesses are not needed because Haymarket and Gainesville already have spaces which are vacant. Gaining control of the recreational field and developing a 4-story multi-use building will potentially be profitable to the QBE interests at the expense of a quality lifestyle for anyone who lives on Blight or in the immediate community. Please record and read this letter during citizens' time at the meeting September 21st. Sincerely, Larry Schultz. That is all that I've received today as of 5 p.m. That's all. These will all be recorded as well in the minutes.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing notice for the proffer amendment of 14600 Washington Street. All right, come on up. You have 5 minutes, ma'am.
Probably 3 is all I need. I just want to say that it's sad. First of all, I'm very offended that the liaison from the council had the nerve when I was on my way and my phone rang and I had to stop to say close the, and I think you've been an awesome chair to the planning commission. I want you to continue to be the chair and operate it just like you always have. You don't have to do everything he tells you to do. But aside from that, I would like to make one comment on that church application because I didn't get to speak on that. I've lived here 50 years almost, and special use permits were not required for most of these uses. This is new stuff, and it's just a way of keeping things from being approved. Like Mr. Kennedy said, and I hardly know Mr. Kennedy, but like he said, that was a use that was there for 15 or 20 years, a combination use of condos and church on the main level. So now we have a special use permit is the issue with the QBE. And my heart is touched and sad for the people who bought their houses fronting right in a street. They made that purchase, but the blessing is that the town has provided a beautiful park in their backyard. There aren't many people in our town that have a park in their backyard. Honestly, it seems abusive, and we have to listen to those same letters saying the same thing, that it's going to decrease property values. And I've been around a couple of people in this town for a long time, and I know where those words came from. It's not going to hurt anybody's property values to allow someone else to do something. It's not right when people move into a town. You let me know when 4 minutes is up.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not right when people move into a town that's been here for over 200 years, and all of a sudden, they want to control everything that gets approved. We all live here. We all have property rights. I'm thankful I'm adjacent to that little park. It's not really benefit to me because I'm elderly and I don't have any children or grandchildren around me anymore. But this is a strolling town, and people do walk up and down these streets all the time, and they're not getting killed or run over. My kids rode up and down Madison Street on their bikes with cars coming and going, and nothing happened to them. I realize it's a more congested time than it was in the past, but that was a school that had 50 cars there every day, coming and going and coming and going. The only thing that's changed is those houses that were approved on Blight Drive, and they can't stop all production for the whole rest of the town. But I do agree with the gentleman who said he worried about too many places serving alcohol. I agree with that. We're only a half a square mile. We probably have 4 places that do it now. I'd like us to not have any more. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, anybody else? All right, I'd like to motion to adjourn the public hearing.
You can simply close it as.
I know I can. I understand that. All right, we have a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, citizens' time. Anybody would like to come up and address the planning commission? If you could, please hold your time to 5 minutes, please. All right, seeing none, we will close citizens' time. We're going to move the minute approval to the end to respect everybody's time. All right, I'm going to bump up Van Meter site plan 14850, 14860 Washington Street, and 6701 Hunting Path. So I think that will go considerably quicker than the others.
Chairman, if you give us just a moment or two, we're going to put in the applicant's presentation and get that all pulled up. So while they're getting set up for the planning commission members as well as any of the audience and public attending online, tonight we have Van Meter here with us. They're in the process of working through their site plan for 14850, 14860 Washington Street, and 6701 Hunting Path Road. Previously, Van Meter attended Planning Commission and Town Council to request an SUP permit for 38 townhomes at this location. This was approved earlier in the year, so we are now working through the site plan phase. First site plan has been submitted to the town. Myself and the town engineer, Katie McDaniel, have provided our comments back to the applicant. They have started to address those comments. They have gotten us a second submission, so that's before you tonight. This is the Planning Commission's opportunity to hear from the applicant, get familiar with what they would like to do in their site plan, ask questions, and then voice any concerns. We will continue to work through the second submission. Katie and I will be submitting comments back to them shortly. I will include any comments tonight back to the applicant as well, and then we'll go from there with the third submission. They will come back to the Planning Commission for further discussion and to present you guys the most updated plan. So with that, if you don't have any questions for me off the get-go, I'm going to hand it over to our applicant. Okay.
I haven't got one. Does this one work?
Okay, it's all you.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. I'm Denise Harover, Vice President of Planning and Entitlements with Van Meter Companies. With me is Derek Donato. He is the engineer for Van Meter and responsible for the engineering of this project. There's a lot of new faces here this evening, so I thought I would do a high-level overview of the original approved rezoning, just to kind of get everyone familiar. The area in question is right above this arrow. This used to be known as the Smith property. We're bounded by Washington Street with our property going parallel to Hunting Path and right behind the Longstreet Commons HOA and homes. The approved SUP allowed for 38 townhouses with a 40-foot maximum building height. We have 30 front load, 8 rear load, and a tot lot. To give you some sense of what it looked like, the approved SUP is to the left. The current site plan, still meeting all the same requirements in terms of the number of units, the location of the stormwater management pond, and the tot lot itself. The large box, empty box, if you will, in front of our project is going to be the Carter Daycare School. That site plan is currently underway and will be tracking behind us because our site plan actually has the infrastructure and transportation that will need to be done for this site, which includes a turn lane off of Washington Street, as well as the road coming in to Robinson Village and all the utilities. Quick details on the site. Our entire SUP area was 4.75 acres. Minimum lot requirements are 2,000 square feet. We're actually at about 2,569. We have a tot lot of 2.24 acres and 2.7 acres of open space. I've got a few slides here just to show you some of the flavor of the site plan, which includes the landscape plan. One of the biggest concerns that was brought up during our planning of the SUP was the streetscape along Hunting Path. It was brought to our attention. There were a number of Bradford pears that had been planted along Hunting Path that are currently in decline. Some of which already have lost major branches. So our intention is to go in and, where needed, remove the declining Bradford pears, and then we will replant so that they'll still have that nice entrance feel that they've gotten accustomed to back there, with a large canopy such as a red maple. On this particular plan, this is the second sheet of the landscape plan. As we get towards Washington Street, our site plan does not have any property that is actually facing on Washington Street, so all of our landscaping is along Carter Robinson Drive and behind the townhouses and throughout the open space area and the stormwater management pond. On the north side of this is the buffer area that will be between us and the Longstreet Commons folks. I wanted to point that out. Those are all townhouses located right behind our units. We will have a landscape buffer in there to break up the visual impact. However, most of those homes all have fences. We were over there taking a look, and there is a complete fence line. So those folks in their homes have fences behind the houses already. Lighting and signage, we are using, and I'm sorry this detail is a little shady, but that shows you how often it gets cut and pasted to be used. This is the town street light, as well as the town signage that is required to be used. This is a copy of the photometric plan. I went in and made little red circles around the street lights. Our approved SUP required that we put in, I believe, 2 or 3 street lights along Hunting Path. I understand that particular stretch of road is quite dark at night. The photometrics clearly indicated that we need 5 lights to go along that pathway. We are also installing a sidewalk that will go traverse the entire length of our property along Hunting Path. And these houses that we're showing, these townhomes, will have their lead walks connecting to that sidewalk. So if you think about it, those houses will actually be facing Hunting Path. Their front door will be looking out on Hunting Path. So combination of a new sidewalk that will go from our property up to the Long Street Commons, new street lights, new street trees. As you go through the community, we do have we do have a sidewalk that will come off of Hunting Path, crosses over in front of the tot lot, and then connects to the internal circulation system so that we have sidewalk throughout our community here. When we went through the SUP, it was very important to the surrounding community and Planning Commission and Board that we made some sort of connection so that folks that live over on the Long Street Commons would actually be able to come through our neighborhood to safely access to Washington Street. The properties that are south along Hunting Path, unfortunately, there's a few commercial properties that don't have enough right-of-way or area to install a sidewalk to complete the connection from our property line along Hunting Path all the way down to Washington Street. So that is why we went ahead and put a sidewalk connection at Hunting Path through the tot lot so that folks coming from the Long Street Commons section could come down, come into our neighborhood and walk along our sidewalks to make that connection all the way down to Washington Street. That was very important for a number of members, including we felt that it would be, we took a look at the commercial area to see if there was any way we could try to make a sidewalk work, and it's outside of our property, so it makes it hard to be able to go and do something on property that you don't have control of. We do have a requirement for the standard sidewalk. As you all are aware, your sidewalks along Washington Street are brick. The site plan does have a note that there is an extension, I believe we're moving the existing sidewalk that is along the frontage. So that sidewalk will be moved and will be the brick as required. There are also, I believe, 3 lights that will be relocated when we move that sidewalk, making way for the turning lane that we did approve, that was approved with our SUP, so that this turn lane can be built to be better access our private drive. Tot lot, here's a picture of the tot lot layout with some of the equipment and the benches. And that is all I have, but I'm happy to take any questions that you have. We put it back on overall so that.
All right, questions? Realize a lot of you, pretty much all of you, are seeing this for the first time, so.
Can I just get a clarification? I understand the sidewalk not being able to be tied into Washington Street. The section on Hunting Path that goes to Long Street, though, you are going to tie into their sidewalk directly? You've got permission from the HOA, and that's all worked out?
As a matter of fact, we've been working with Chuck Harnahan,
Okay.
not only on the sidewalk, but we also have a utility extension on the HOA property as well. His on Long Street side? Okay. Yeah, Derek, the engineer, was just pointing out that their sidewalk's actually in the public right-of-way. So that we'll be tying into their sidewalk on the public right-of-way.
Okay. Even better.
All right, other questions?
So, I know this is a special use permit application, or actually a site plan. We're going over the site plan, right? I'm assuming everything that we see here has been approved? Is that
Yes.
everything? Okay.
Yes, so
Here you'll see the townhomes which were approved by the special use permit, so we're working through the design aspect of the site plan. The front commercial portion there was part of the SUP conditions, and then the school over on the right is there by right use, and a separate applicant will be bringing in a site plan for that, which fits right into the parcel 3 kind of puzzle piece, if you will, here on the bottom right.
I mean, I would like to go on record and raise my concern with the estimated vehicles per day, which shows about 2,870. So I just want to go on record, even though it's too late at this point.
Oh, no, not too late. As a matter of fact, we took a look at those numbers, and we believe our engineer might have fat-fingered the numbers on the site plan, and we're going to look at that and get back to you. He actually estimated 737 trips per day for the 2,500 to 3,000 square foot commercial building. I think he meant 73 trips per day for that building. So his numbers are way high. So we are going to look at that and get back with you guys and answer the question for the total. Rough numbers, Derek, if you wouldn't mind reading them off for the single family and
The townhouses generate 331 vehicles per day. The daycare is anticipated to generate 694, and then right now he has 1845 on the retail pad, but I think there might be an error in his number there. So my expectation is that it'll be around 1,200 with all three of them together, but we'll confirm that.
But there is still some concern with knowing that school starts a certain time of the day and they let out, you know, we already have issues with traffic from the church, from the daycare, certain hours of the day. So this is going to be, my personal opinion, is going to be adding to what we're currently facing as a result of that. So, thanks.
Other comments?
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for coming, appreciate it.
our pleasure. Thank you
If
for having us.
the planning commission has any other comments or concerns that come up over the next couple days or weeks as you have time to digest and look at this, please let me know, send me an email, and I'll work with Denise and Derek to get them those comments and have discussion so we can bring back the third submission, hopefully at our next meeting or in November.
And if I might, I'll make sure that we include, we did have a traffic study that looked especially at the fact that the church has daycare as well and the timing. So I'll get with Emily to make sure that we pass that along because that issue was raised and we did look at it, so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We're going to take just a moment and pull Ayush back up on Zoom so that we can continue with our agenda items.
Okay. All right, we have them back, right? All right, let's knock out, as long as there's no objections, the consideration of this SUP for the religious SUP at 6611 Jefferson Street that Mr. Kennedy brought up. And then all that's left will be the proffer amendment on Washington Street and then the SUP. Then we can hit minute approval and items Roman numeral 8 to 12 at the end, all right?
Yes, so we are on packet page 8 for my staff report for the special use permit for 6611 Jefferson Street for a religious assembly in the B1. You have my analysis on the following pages, and then I have provided a recommendation on packet page 11. So in the beginning of the discussion of the SUP, there was a little bit of miscommunication on the hours. However, the ones presented here are the correct hours. Wednesday, 7 p.m., 1 hour. Saturday, 7 p.m., 2 hours. Sunday, 4 p.m., 2 hours. I further worked with the applicant to discuss parking and the number of participants. So with that, you know, what we would like to offer is a recommendation for approval with 2 conditions is what I've proposed here. Number 1, the applicant must provide a certificate of occupancy per the space to determine the maximum allowable parishioners in the space. This shall be provided by the applicant prior to the operation. And then number 2, the hours of operation shall not extend beyond 10 p.m. any day of the week. I provided this as a condition for discussion with the Planning Commission. One of the concerns that staff had is as parishioners, you know, you go and maybe spend a couple hours, but you hang around, maybe there's an additional event on a Saturday or Sunday evening. But if they're leaving the parking lot, you know, 10:30, 11, 11:30, is this causing noise, commotion, light effects on the surrounding residential properties? There is one residential property still currently zoned residential right as you exit from this parking lot. So there is a potential that headlights would be entering right into her house. And then there is the building to the north of the parking lot. It is 6600 Jefferson, 6601 Jefferson, and there are apartment structures on the second floor. So you would have a couple other residents there as well. So these were the 2 conditions that I had put in for a recommendation. Of course, please discuss, and I do believe the applicant is still here if you were to have any additional questions for the applicant.
Well, ma'am, I guess my immediate question is, what other businesses, not that the church is a business, but what other business in town do we preclude people from standing around the parking lot and talking? Do we have that on any restaurant in town? Seems a little excessive for a church.
We do not.
So why would we do it for a religious assembly?
Well, with it being a special use permit, it was more a matter of it not affecting the residential properties across the street and beside the parking lot.
I would think.
I mean, of course, the residents are always allowed to call in a noise complaint.
Sure.
To the
I
police
mean,
department, so
we already have ordinances in place that would preclude disturbances after hours. I'm just not really comfortable personally with putting restrictions on houses of worship that we don't put on other places.
Okay.
So that's my thought. Hi, Mr. Weir.
No matter what we do with this tonight, whether we forward it with a recommendation or not, the resumption of services is dependent on the issuance of an occupancy permit by the county.
Correct.
Can that occupancy permit proceed without the SUP in place, or is that a requirement for the filing of the occupancy permit?
So if the planning commission were to allow me to issue like a temporary zoning approval, what happens is with Prince William County being our building department, they need to receive a document from me giving zoning approval. So I would have to give that document in order for somebody to come out, do the inspection, and provide the occupancy.
But we can't authorize you to do that, only the council can, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So in any event, no matter what we do, whether we forward it or not, there's nothing that can be done about the occupancy permit until at the earliest, the October meeting of the town council? Okay. my personal thoughts on this. You're replacing a 501c3 with another 501c3. There's no adverse tax impact. It was a church before. I mean, I'm ready to go through. I'm ready to go ahead and recommend approval for the town council. I would, however, ask that a third condition be applied, and that be that the applicant provide a parking plan prior to the publication of the agenda on which the town council hearing for the SUP appears.
All right, Mrs. Walker, you have any comments on this? Mr. Hallett? Mr. Benyay? Ayush? Okay, did you hear that?
Yeah, he said no comments.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All right, let's do a roll call vote, please. Well, first of all, we need the motion. Yeah, jumping ahead here. So
Were you taking issue with the 10 p.m. part of it or another part?
I'm taking issue with the 10 p.m. I don't think we should, I just don't think it's right that we would restrict houses of worship, and we don't restrict any other businesses. We already have noise ordinances. Yes?
You're right, this is a noise ordinance could address it, but at the same time, this could also nip it in the bud before having to go to the noise ordinance. So, I mean, houses of worship also have worship where they're playing music and things like that. So if there's no time limit, then they could play till as late as they wanted to. So would we end up, if it were to be a music venue, a place that played live music, would this be a contingency that you guys would anticipate? Or would you just let them play as long as they wanted to?
No, I'm not.
That's one of the reasons why we put it on there, is because it is regular to have live music and singing and things like that. And if you're going to have something like that, restricting it to 10 p.m. because they have some week time, they have some weekend, this is just something, it is a special use permit, so that's one of the things that you can consider. You can't put conditions on special use permits. So that's thinking about the impacts that this particular use could have on this area and the surrounding properties. That's why. It's not, we're not singling out anybody, it's just this is something that could happen.
Well, there's a lot of things that could happen. I listened to the public hearing about kids playing in streets and drunk drivers, so, I mean, at some point, common sense has to enter into the equation here. And I'm totally opposed to any restrictions on a house of worship as it comes to times. And I would like to think that the Christians in that church would be cognizant of their neighbors. I just think it's a bad precedent.
I mean, I'm kind of conflicted. Yes, it is an ordinance, right? So we're not asking them to do anything that's outside of the ordinance. But at the same time, I think it's going to be challenging for the applicant to enforce it, because he is not going to be the one holding the service, right? So how does he go about enforcing that limitation? That's also a challenge.
I mean, this is the type of restriction that is typically employed in many jurisdictions on an SUP. I'm not just saying that in general. And I kind of wish that we had put similar restrictions on some other SUPs in town. But that being said, given the location of this particular venue, and I can't think of any, with the exception of Ms. Bailey's house, I can't think of any residential units that are really close to it. And it's certainly not a hill that I'm going to die on, so, you know, I'm not averse to leaving that particular provision out, and would make the following motion. I move the Planning Commission forward SUP 2020-003 to the Town Council for a public hearing with the following recommended conditions. The applicant must provide a certificate of occupancy for the space to determine the maximum allowable parishioners in the space. This shall be provided by the applicant prior to the religious assembly operating. And 2, the applicant provides a parking plan prior to the publication of the agenda on which the Town Council hearing for the SUP appears.
Hi, Mr. Weir, can you, applicant provides a parking plan, can you say the other one more time, please?
The applicant provides a parking plan prior to the publication of the agenda on which the town council hearing for the SUP appears.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. All right, Mr. Weir, why don't you read that one more time, then we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Oh, you're really going to make me go back and find it? There we go. I move the Planning Commission forward SUP 2020-003 to the Town Council for a public hearing with the following recommended conditions. The applicant must provide a certificate of occupancy for the space to determine the maximum allowable parishioners in the space. This shall be provided by the applicant prior to the religious assembly operating. And 2, the applicant provides a parking plan prior to the publication of the agenda on which the town council hearing for the SUP appears.
All right, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Blocker. Weir.
Aye.
Cottle.
Yes.
Pellet.
Aye.
Beignet.
Aye.
Morel.
All right, motion carries. All right. Let's go on to consideration of proffer amendment for 14600 Washington Street, please.
We're on page 18 of the packet. You have my staff report here regarding the proffer amendment application for 14600 Washington Street. The proffer was amended in late June to change the acreage from 4.51. Originally, it was submitted in the beginning of June to take the proffer from 4.51 to 2.06. It was then amended at the end of June to change the acreage from 4.51 to 0 acres. This was re-noticed, and with that, the applicant submitted updated documents. Town staff spoke with Prince William County, who is the current user for that proffered acreage. We discussed how it's currently being used, if the public is allowed to use it, to what extent they're allowed to use it, if they need a permit to use the property, and then also what their long-term expectations were for park space in the greater Haymarket area. Specifically, we did speak with them about the area within the town. I am happy to answer any questions. Again, that conversation was directly related to how they currently use the space and if they would like to continue use. And they also mentioned in there that they require a specific amount of parking. So with that, my recommendation is to deny the proffer amendment as presented. And I state that as presented, which is to terminate all of the proffered space. The town staff in previous discussions with the applicant was open to the original proffer amendment, which would reserve roughly 2 acres of this green space in the back. We are still open, we being the town staff, are still open to having these discussions with the applicant of what that green space or open space may look like in the future. And with that, I would just like to also let the Planning Commission know that comments were submitted back to the applicant on August 31st, and we have not received any communication with the applicant since then. Not even acknowledgement of the comments. And the applicant's here tonight if you wish for them to address any questions or have a discussion with them.
I think it'd be good to hear from them since they came out, so I'll give you the floor.
Excellent, thank you, Chairman. Commissioners, appreciate your all's time this evening. My name is Connor Leek, I'm the president of Haymarket Properties Group. With some of you being new to this position, if you are open to it, I'd like to walk through the PowerPoint that we presented back in June. If you had already reviewed that PowerPoint that I believe was in your July and August packet, that would not be necessary this evening, but wanted to leave it open to you all if you would like me to re-present that PowerPoint this evening.
Why don't you go ahead and walk through it for the benefit,
Walk through? Okay. So, would you like me to place it up on the screen?
please?
Well, Ms. Lockhart, would I be able to utilize your HDMI cable? We don't have one. Do you mind, would it be acceptable if I were to email you the document? Or place it onto a flash drive for it?
That would probably be the easiest.
Lovely. I apologize.
Hey, while they're doing that, let's take about a 4-minute recess.
Thank you. I hear you.
Yoga breaks.
Ah, man.
All right, we good? All right, call us back into session to discuss this consideration of proffer amendment at 14600 Washington Street. All right, sir, you're up.
Thank you, Chairman. Is this better in regards to volume? Lovely. So, again, my name is Connor Leak with Haymarket Properties Group. Keith Lowry, who's another partner in the company. Just want to give you a little bit of a background and understanding on how we came to acquire the property. Mr. Kuhn, next slide, please. You can actually go 2 slides if you don't mind. Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I'd be more than happy to just give it vocally.
That's fine.
Lovely. So we purchased the property back in 2013. Spring of 2013, we entered into a purchase contract with Prince William County in regards to acquiring the assets. At that time, part of that property, roughly 2 acres, was in the actual county, and roughly 6 acres was sitting in the town limits. Part of the county was zoned A1 agricultural. A part of the town was there zoned R1 residential. We submitted a letter to the town asking for support and a BLA, which is a boundary line adjustment. We wanted to move the entire property into the town and have one municipality and governmentship. That way it would make it easier in regards to not having 2 zoning ordinances that would be conflicting and trying to go through those processes. As we walked through that, we went in, and when we did submit that BLA, the town actually came back and stated that to have support of a BLA, you would have to go in and get the property rezoned. And so it was at that time that Councilman Tobias had given a directive for his town staff to work with the applicant to file a rezoning application. At that time, we went ahead and we filed that rezoning application with the town to get that property rezoned from R1 residential to B1 town center. We walked through this process, and in August of 2013, after many public hearings, a lot of which actually no one spoke against the rezoning, only folks spoke in favor of, did we come to a agreement on August 5th of 2013, and at that time they approved the ordinance allowing the rezoning, as well as the proffer that was dated August 1st, 2013. So there was a lot of questions and concerns in regards to this proffer, and was it tied with the contract, but as we know, or you may not know, as I did not know when I first served on the Planning Commission, so a proffer is tied with a rezoning. The only stipulations that we had within our purchase contract was under paragraph 16, which gave the county the right to first refusal after 5 years or for the first 5 years, if we were to go sell the asset, the county had the ability to buy it back, and they requested to have 30 days to let us know. The second portion that was in the purchase contract with the county was paragraph 17, in which that one stated was that we needed to have a 5-year lease and go into general conformance with a 5-year lease for them to be able to allow to use the recreational fields. It was the town council at the time there in August that requested from 5 years to 10 years. Granted, if you do break down the proffer, which is in your agenda packet, there's a couple options in there which clearly show that the intention of the proffer was for those 10 years. There was foreseen future of this property, and because of such, we made sure that both parties had provisions in there which allowed them to be able to develop the property at a later time. So if you walk through the proffer that's in your packet this evening, under the first page, which is the recreational field, it states that we're going to make available for recreational field use 4.51 acres. At that time, that lease ends with the county after 10 years, or it actually in the proffer does not stipulate, but states the lease with the county. At that time, we would then market the property for 1 year at a fair market value. That is not the same price there necessarily as what the county is paying, but at a fair market value for property similar and conforming to in the Haymarket and greater Haymarket area. If no one comes to enter into an agreement to lease that property, then the applicant, being Haymarket Properties Group, would have the right to develop the property. Where we're sitting at today is we're looking to tie our proffer in direct correlation with the lease. The reasoning behind this is because the county has come to us and stated that they would like to repurpose the fields in the back. They would like to grow the fields in size and be able to, at this point, since only T-ball is acceptable within that area due to the parameter of the arch within the two fields in the back, as well as the close proximity to the field and to the front, it is limited to the type of baseball, T-ball, softball that is able to be utilized on these fields. So what the county said was, hey, can we come to some sort of agreement to be able to repurpose the fields in the back? And we said, we're open to the discussion. What do you have in mind? And so what they have in mind is what you further see in the packet on the GDP side where it is. So when you're reading the wording that was put out and the advertisement saying we go from 4.51 acres down to 0 acres, that is pretty alarming, and I can understand a lot of folks' concerns and problems with that. But if you further read through our development narrative, we clearly state that we are looking to tie this to the deed of lease with the county. From there, there's two other portions within the August 1st, 2013 proffer that allows for the ROFO notice, which we had in there due to the county, which says within the first 5 years, if the county wants to purchase it, they have the ability to do so, and then the town has the ability to do so thereafter. It also allows for development of this land at a later date. Lastly, within the last paragraph, it states that this proffer can be amended. A lot of folks were saying, well, we shouldn't change it, we need to keep it as it is. That is why both parties agreed to having that sort of language in there, allowing for an amendment to the proffer. So that's where we are in front of you today. We're looking to amend this proffer to allow for development of the front ball fields. And we look at it as it's not can we do it, but it's more when we can do it. Since the proffer clearly shows that we would be allowed to do it at some date, which the soonest would most likely be 2014, unless a sale was commenced earlier. If a sale was commenced earlier, it could be earlier than that, 2024. At that time, we are here looking to allow us to develop the front portion and be able to preserve and utilize the back portion for the remainder of their lease with there. And then at that time, if the county is looking to extend, we are open to those conversations with the county to be able to see what would be best for the Haymarket area, Parks and Rec in general, and the residents of the town. So that's where we stand today in regards to the proffer amendment and why we are looking for that proffer amendment. And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have in regards to the proffer.
All right, so just for clarity, so I'm looking at Exhibit A on packet page 25. So when you talk about the proffer amendment that you're proposing, you're talking about taking and developing the area of the little T-ball field that fronts Washington Street and leaving the two fields in the back, which would basically be even with Dogwood Park Lane going, I guess it would be north, correct?
Chairman, plus or minus, yes, sir. So it's better outlined within the GDP that we submitted as a supporting document for folks to better understand the proper. And obviously, as some folks know, we are currently running an SUP application as well. But to stay on track in regards to the proffer, it's better depicted under our GDP, which, let me get that package page for you here. I believe it's your package page 78. It clearly shows the two fields there. In discussions that we had with the county, they sent over a rough sketch which depicts this that's depicted on the current GDP, minus a couple items. A couple items that they were also looking to be able to do was to put in a playground possibly, as well as have restrooms outside and different things along those lines. Those conversations that we had with them was on July 8th of 2020. And that is why we ended up coming to and depicting what is currently on that GDP as two fields, one that they requested to be 200 feet and the other one that they requested to be 130 feet.
The question I have is how come what you were just stating was not conveyed to Ms. Lockhart when she had that conversation with them?
To be honest, sir, I could not tell you. I could show you the email. I'd be more than happy to make that a part of the record from Mr. Seth, who sent over this attachment. I'm not sure if Ms. Lockhart has anything in writing from Mr. Seth in those regards, but I do have the email to where we had a conversation with him on July 8th of 2020.
And that conversation was initiated by you or initiated by the Parks and Recreation?
We've been in talks with Park and Recreation since 2018. In 2018, that's when Parks and Rec first came to us and stated that they did not necessarily have use for the front ball field. At that time, we asked them what was their game plan, what were they looking to do, and they had stated that they had a greater need for a larger field at the 200-foot mark, and that is when they asked if we would be open to redevelopment in the back portion of the property to be able to redevelop that 200-foot field as well as a smaller T-ball field at the 130-foot mark.
And in terms of your new proffer amendment or statement, I think you indicated that the plan right now is to preserve, not actually preserve, is for the Parks and Recreation to use the back two fields, I guess, right?
Correct, sir. So it would be tied to their lease. So nothing would change unless Parks and Rec agreed to the change, because it would be tied to the deed of lease.
But let me read your recreational field use here. Applicant will terminate any further recreation use of the 4.5 acres adjacent to the existing school building, as provided in deed, so and so. Basically, on the earlier of the date of any early termination as provided in the deed of lease or August 13th, 2023.
Correct, sir. So we'd be tying it to the deed of lease, sir.
It doesn't say that, though. Based on this,
let me pull it up here. I apologize. What packet page was that, sir?
this is your proffer amendment statement, the latest one,
Yes, sir.
dated June 24th, 2020.
Yes, sir.
Where does it say in here that it's tied to the lease?
Yes, sir. Let me pull that up in the packet here, and I'll be more than happy to show you. Excellent. So we are on packet page 31. So the attached a brief for amendment to zoning map application. So Haymarket Properties Group is the owner of 14600 Washington Street, Haymarket, Virginia 20169. The contiguous 8.8 acres, parcel zone B1 on the eastern side of the town of Haymarket. HBG is requesting a proffer condition amendment that will terminate any further recreational use of the 4.51 adjacent to the existing school building as provided in the deed of lease dated August 13, 2013 between Haymarket Properties Group and the Board of County Supervisors. On the earlier of the date of any termination as provided in the deed of lease or August 23, 2023. Until the applicant terminates the recreational use, it will maintain the recreational field pursuant to the requirements of the deed of lease. Thereafter, the applicant may either continue to maintain and make the 4.51 acres available for use, or develop the property consistent with the B1 zoning regulations. HBG would not be changing the zoning of the acreage. It has been and will continue to be zoned B1. So if you look at halfway down, on the earlier of the dates of any early termination as provided in the deed of lease, or August 13, 2013. So what that would read to is if the Parks and Rec are open to amending their lease, as they stated with us, that would go ahead and terminate the portion of the proffer based off of the acreage of that deed of lease.
Okay, my understanding of this I think the deed of lease that you are mentioning here is the current deed of lease, correct?
Correct, yes, sir. So
which
the
is-
August 13th, sir.
So basically, after August 13, 2023, you are going to be under no obligation to maintain any of the green space. Is that correct?
That would be correct, sir. Concurrently with what is currently in the proffer under paragraph 1, recreational field use.
Okay. And earlier, I think you indicated that the proffer statement is somehow tied to the current lease and that it's set to expire at the end of the lease. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
So can you point me, I'm looking at your application for rezoning and some documents here. I don't see anywhere in here where it indicates that the proffer statement is tied to the current lease or it has an expiration date. Can you point me?
I'd be more than happy to do for you, sir. So if you look at the proffer statement that's dated August 1st, 2013, under paragraph 1, recreational field use, and I will wait for everyone to get to that page, and then I'll be more than happy to read from it. I believe it's package page 22.
Okay.
Excellent. So paragraph 1, recreational field use. Applicant will maintain and make available for recreational field use approximately 4.51 acres adjacent to the existing school building, as illustrated on the attached Exhibit A. The recreational fields will be maintained for recreational field use by the applicant for the date of the approval of this proffer by by Haymarket Town Council, so long as public or private partner is willing to enter into a commercially reasonable form of lease agreement at a fair market price. Fair market price will be determined utilizing comparables for similar properties within the Haymarket leasing market and not necessarily property within the Haymarket corporate boundaries. And in no event shall any discounted price being paid by the Board of County Supervisors of Prince William County, Virginia, to the applicant for the lease of the recreational fields by Prince William County Department of Parks and Recreation be deemed fair market price. And then this is where that would kick in for you, sir. So, however, if for a period of 1 year following the termination of any lease agreement for use of the recreational fields, the applicant does not enter into a commercially reasonable form of lease agreement at a fair market value with another property, public or private, the applicant may thereafter either continue to maintain and make available for recreational field use or develop the property consistent with the B1 zoning regulations. The 1 year period shall begin on the date written notice from the applicant is received by the town of Haymarket stating no lease agreement for the recreational fields exists.
Yes, I have read that multiple times. But what you're wanting to do is to take away that option, right?
The 1 year option,
The
yes, sir.
1 year option.
Yes, sir.
So you don't want to give the public or private entity the chance to lease the recreational field. You want to take that away. That's what you're wanting, right? That option.
So to the 4.5 acres?
Yes.
Yes, sir. We're looking to take away the 1 year additional option from that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, granted, with the new deed, if the new proffer went through and the acreage decreased down to the 2.5 acres, and Prince William County Parks and Rec came to us and stated that, hey, look, we're looking to continue to do this lease, and if it made economic sense for us, then at that time we would look into that at that point. Right now, unfortunately, what's happening, sir, is we're paying a lot of taxes on this land because when this was put through in the original portion, Prince William County only agreed to pay their portion, 50% portion of their taxes. They didn't also cover the town's taxes. So Mr. Kuhn, yes, sir?
Just to let the commission know, the assessed value of this property is about $11,600 and equates to $16 a year
for the recreational space. So just to make sure that's correct.
Yes, sir. And do you have the numbers for the Prince William County side as well?
For Prince William County, what?
For the portion that we pay in addition to?
Well, you pay for the recreational, you pay the town $16 for the Parks and Rec section.
$16.
Does that sound correct?
Yes.
And then the rest for the 4.5 acre, 1 acre is paid by the, my understanding is by the county. Right.
What's the assessed value of the Parks and Rec space?
When we contacted Prince William County, the assessed value was $11,000 and some change. I believe it was just under $12,000 for the 4.51 acres. So
Rounded up to 12,000?
based on our tax rate, that is about $16,000, or I'm sorry, $16 a year that QBE and Haymarket Properties Group needs to pay the town of Haymarket for that section,
And the county tax would be about roughly $13.50,
which
based
that,
on 1.125?
based on their lease agreement, which is what the county pays, is the county taxes.
So they're only paying, if I understand this correctly, the tax on the portion of the property that is not in recreational use, correct?
That's my understanding.
Sir, to be honest, I apologize. I don't have that number in front of me. I don't have the ability to contact my controller to find that out, but I'd be more than happy to find that
That's what you
information.
just asserted a minute ago.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And I'm getting conflicting information from Mr. Kuhn, so before I double down, I would want to make sure that what I'm stating is fully accurate at that point. Mr. Kuhn is disagreeing with me.
So going back to this,
Yes,
so again, after August 13, 2023, you are under no obligation to continue the public, semi-public park use of the land, of the property.
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay. Also, like I stated earlier, I took a look at your rezoning application,
Yes, sir.
which is dated May 28, 2013. And there are some interesting things. How this was presented to the town back then is totally in opposition of what this proffer amendment wants to do. So let me read a couple things from here. This is what it states. Our plan for public space use will allow for the county parks and recreation use of the fields. QBE is currently working with the county parks and recreation to propose adequate access and parking for the efficient use of the sports fields. As the property sits today, it is suited exactly for the purpose use. As well, we have developed a long-term growth plan that will allow for the expansion without the disruption of the park use. That's what you stated in your application, right? So a long-term growth plan that will allow expansion without disruption of the park use. So why the change of plan?
Yes, sir. We went through, from that May, June, July, August, we went through about 4 months there of proffer changes back and forth based off of input from the Planning Commission at the time, as well as the Town Council at the time. And that is to where we came with the final proffer there in August 1st of 2013, to where we ensured that we had the ability, if something were to happen economically in the market, and that if we were need to liquidate the asset or to be able to develop the asset, we'd be able to do so. And that is why we made sure that the wording was in the August 1st, 2013 proffer.
Okay. I'll have other things to read here, but
Sir, can I,
sure, go ahead.
So one thing that we've been working with is the entire intent of this was to maintain some useful capabilities for Prince William County. Our understanding when we worked into this, working with the county, was that front field was not useful for the current intents that they wished. And that's why we proposed moving fields to the back and maintaining that, and then allowing that to be a more functional space for the county. That was the intent of the solution we put forward. I would agree with Connor, there's been a lot of back and forth over the last few months, but that is the offer that's being presented currently.
Okay, so initially, go
Just a
ahead.
quick clarification. If that's the intent, how come the proffer was then amended to take it from 4.51 to 0 acres? So if I understand you correctly, you just stated it was always intended to save the 2 acres in the rear, but it's been amended to now be 0.
Ma'am, it's been amended to tie with the deed of lease. So the deed of lease, which is 4.51 acres. And as if Parks and Rec wanted to change it, which is up to them, it's not up to us, they would have to be mutually agreed upon because they were wanting some improvements done as well. And at that time, that's to where the acreage would then be decreased down to that smaller number.
Okay, I'm not understanding. I think you were saying that the Parks and Recreation wants to use the 2.1 semi-acre, they want to continue use that, right? I think that's
Yes.
what you're stating. But at the same time, you're saying you're wanting to reduce it from 4.51 acres to 0 acres. So aren't those in conflict?
Sir, it would be because I don't recall to wherever I said that we wanted to put it down to 0 acres. The narrative stated that we wanted to tie it with the deed of lease. I'm looking through the application to where I stated that it needs to go from 4.5 down to 0.
But that's your updated proffer amendment. That's what it states.
Correct, tied it with the deed of lease.
Current deed of lease.
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Which is set to expire again on August 13, 2023. Okay, let me, if you will allow me, please. This is going back to your rezoning application from May 28, 2013 again. The sustainment plan adds the largest planned park within the town's limits. Okay? The original and current intent is to develop partnership with the entities operating within the space, right? The building ownership and the public entity to maintain the open space. The current entity is the Prince William County Parks and Recreation. The town's comprehensive plan designates the property within the towns as public, semi-public use. Regarding the Pace West School area, the plan directs that the land adjacent to the school should be protected and maintained in the event and so forth. So basically what I'm trying to get at is the way you presented the application, you made it seem you were going to maintain the Parks and Recreation, the public, semi-public use of the property without any expiration date. That's how you made it seem.
Yes, sir, and then as we stated, between input between us as well as the town, over those 4 months to that August date, that is where both parties came to agreeable terms.
To me, the proffer statement from May 28, 2013 is a condition of the town allowing the rezoning of the property. That's my opinion. I don't know about others. Because that was a proffer. You offered that to the town as part of the rezoning. That's what was offered. But now you want to take it back.
So the ordinance that was passed on the August 8th of 2013, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth whereas down states, whereas the applicant has proffered certain provisions regarding recreational field use on the property and improvements to the property as described in the proffer statement attached here too, dated August 1, 2013. So that was the proffer that the town, as well as we, agreed to in August of 2013, based off the ordinance. Yes, sir.
As part of the rezoning application, correct?
So if the intent of the proffer was to be permanent or lasting longer, the proffer would have stated that. The proffer as written does not state perpetual use.
But and also, contrary to that, it doesn't set a time limit, does it?
It does expire when the lease expires.
It doesn't. Where does it say that?
We have no obligation to continue Parks and Rec use, nor do we have an obligation to continue with the open field use or the recreational use if no one else wants to take over that lease under fair market value, given that it is currently zoned B1 commercial.
I agree with you on that, but you want to take that option away with this new amendment, with the proffer amendment.
What we want to do is tie it to the lease for Prince William County. If Prince William County wants to reduce down to 2 acres, then that 1-year provision would be tied to the portion that they continue to use. It doesn't go away entirely, it just goes to the lease of the county. And part of that is trying to get a better use for the county based on their needs and not leave the front undeveloped. It has been our intention since the beginning of this, since 2012, when we went to get the land to develop this parcel commercially.
Why not leave the proffer statement as it is right now? Why do you need to amend it?
We can't move the Prince William Parks and Rec to the back without amending the proffer. It also, well, the lease can't be changed. They need more space in the back for the additional parking that we need to allocate. It goes beyond the original line, so we want to tie it to that. And then, yes, we would like to escalate the development of the front parcel. We have many years of development work, both going through the site plan amendment, we have to go through the ARB, we have to go through a number of processes with the town. We like to go ahead and start that now so we can begin the commercial construction up front.
I don't know. To me, the way I see it is that you want to remove that option and be able to do in accordance with the B1 zoning after August 13, 2023 without any restriction. That's how it's been presented, which is, like I stated earlier, that's how it was presented when you applied to rezone the property. Right, and to me, again, that's a condition of the rezoning of the property.
I mean, I don't know how else to state the condition that's on the property is what's written in the proffer. So it's not any additional or extraneous information. The proffer is written as it's written. And that's what we're intending to follow. We look at this as an opportunity to provide a better value to Prince William County. We don't have to. If we wanted to reduce it further, we could have just said, hey, let's reduce it to 1 acre. And we could make that a green space park. We have a number of options, but our intention was to tie it to the lease with the county. If the county doesn't want to renegotiate the lease to move the fields, which we would have incur costs in order to move the fields, then the proffer doesn't change. It's still incumbent upon us to work out a modification of the lease with the county that is beneficial to us throughout the life of this. If we can't do that, then the proffer doesn't change at all. And part of this is one of the reasons we wanted to have the planning session prior to this, is to work through some of these. You know, I'm still, we've been talking among partners, what exactly is the goal of the town in this area? Is it to continue Prince William Parks and Rec utilization of this property in a longer term scenario? Is that the best use? Would it be a separate use or a different use of green space? But again, without that dialogue, we can't necessarily have a more effective discussion.
I'm sorry, can you one more time repeat, please, why you don't want to leave the proffer as it is and why you want to amend it? Can you tell me one more time, please?
Yeah. So we need to move the fields, or move the baseball fields, in order to go with the design we have from the county. That is going to incur cost on us. We would like to also change the shape of the lease. We do not believe under the current proffer that we can only lease 2 acres to the county. We need to redo that to move for the space that they would actually be utilizing under their new lease. And then we would also like to develop the front commercially in order to begin that process. I mean, we're not hiding the fact that we want to do commercial development on the site. And that was an intention when we bought it in 2012. Even in 2012, we were happy to be able to continue use of the fields by the county. Our intention from the beginning was to first spend the time and effort to revitalize the building, which was condemned at the time. It was a land-only purchase. A number of the other offers wanted to demolish the building and build townhouses. So our intent was to refurbish the building, and then we were done with that and we're on commercial leases, then to come back and start developing the fields at a later date. But there was no reason for us to remove the use of the fields during that development time.
So how come you did not clarify that when you asked the town to rezone it from to business one? How come you did not clarify that? How come your statements in here indicate that preservation of the park?
So much of the conversations that we had on this really did come down, just like we're doing here, discussion with the council at the time, discussion with members, a discussion with the community, and that's what evolved into the final proffer.
I don't want to repeat myself again, going back. This is what it says. Our plan for public space use will allow the county park recreation use of the fields, right? That's what it says. And it talks about here, without any impacts to the park, without disruption of the park use. That's what was communicated based on what I see here to the town. And also, one of the provisions of the rezoning I'm looking at here is recreational field use. That's what I have here in front of me.
And we have fulfilled the proffer to date. As per that recreational field use, there are more provisions which Connor has read here that give us parameters that we have to work out when the lease expires. It gives us parameters on what to do if we choose to sell the property. There are a number of provisions within the proffer which we have discussed in detail with a number of members of the town of Haymarket.
Yeah, to me, the condition of the rezoning it seems like you guys want to change that. I'm not sure who was here back in 2013. Did you, Mr. Ware, get any indication that they were planning on developing the restricted area at any given point?
Mr. Chairman, may I respond? I've got a couple of questions and, well, a couple of statements, I guess, more than anything else. First off, I'd like to thank you for confirming it's been your intent since 2012 to develop the parcel commercially, and this proffer change seems to fall in line with that and confirms what many have suspected. That being said, in looking at the actual proffer amendment and comparing it to the original proffer statement, the proffer amendment to remove paragraph 1 from the original proffer fundamentally changes the entirety of the proffer agreement upon which the rezoning was based. You are correct. I was around in 2013, and there was much angst and Sturm und Drang over the conditions regarding the recreational use of the fields on that parcel. I was involved with the school board at the time. The school board originally did the proposal to sell the property. It was, to my recollection, their intent to make the field use perpetual or in perpetuity. And I think as a result of those discussions and concerns by the town, both town council members, planning commission, residents, and everyone else, led to the language that's actually present in the existing clause 1 with respect to recreational field use. And you've sort of glossed over it and to a degree dismissed it. And I think the important section of it begins on line 4, at the end of line 4, wherein the agreement is, so long as a public or private partner is willing to enter into a commercially reasonable form of lease agreement at a fair market price. So long as, in my view, as long as somebody is willing to enter into a lease agreement at a fair market value, that use could be maintained in perpetuity per the parameters of that proffer. And if you skip down later in the paragraph, it then goes, however, if for a period of 1 year following the termination of any lease agreement for use of the recreational fields, the applicant does not enter in a commercially reasonable form of lease agreement at a fair market value with another party, or public or private, blah, 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 then you can lose it. What you're doing is fundamentally changing that proffer, and you are switching it from something that, in theory, could allow perpetual maintenance of those recreational fields to one that is tied to an existing lease that expires on August 13th of 2023, and eliminating the possibility for a third party or even the town to come in and make a subsequent offer to maintain or to have that recreational use continue. And like I say, that's a fundamental change in the proffers that resulted in your entity being granted a rezoning of the property. It seems to me, you're saying it's not the case, but the new language also seems to underscore the fact that you want to reduce the acreage from, what is it, 4.51 to 0, because there is no minimum, there is no maximum. It's just, you know, we're going to be done with it, and we're going to maintain our plans to commercially develop the property. You know, again, this guts the intent of the original proffers that, as I recall, council required as part of the rezoning application. Similarly, with respect to the ball fields, you've made some assertions with respect to the Parks and Recs Department. I sat in on a phone conversation with Seth Hendler Voss, and they have a much different story to tell than yours. It's my understanding Parks and Rec wants to maintain all of the fields, including the top field at the front, and based on the usage last weekend, it seems like they are making use of that field. So the argument that was made previously that field is not utilized, quite frankly, is specious. To continue, I have an additional issue, and that regards proffer number 2. And if you look at the proffers from 2013, site plan improvements, applicant will submit a final site plan for the property by December 31, 2013, and thereafter diligently pursue approval of the final site plan. Applicant will submit a work schedule for implementation of this final site plan, yada, 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 yada. You simply restate that proffer with a new date of December 31, 2021. By my reading, the final site plan should have been accomplished quite some time ago, and to date, you have not accomplished that. You have not perfected the final site plan, and in fact were written to in 2017 with a request to perfect the documentation, and here we sit 3 years later, and you still haven't fulfilled that proffer. So you want to change one proffer, you haven't fulfilled the other, and you want us to reconsider the proffer amendments? You know, you'll forgive me if I'm just a little questioning what the real intent is here.
Well, I think the intent's pretty clear on page packet 22. From the very beginning, they were wanting to develop the property consistent with the B1 zoning regulation. We have to be really careful about going back and recreating what was done in 2013. What was done in 2013 was done in 2013. Okay? They're operating on this proffer amendment. I'm looking at an email dated Monday, April 23rd, 2018, 9:22 a.m. from Mr. Seth Hendler Voss from the Prince William County Government. Opening paragraph says, "Good morning. You're correct about the T-ball field location. This will not require Board of County Supervisor approval. We simply won't exercise that portion of the lease. I'm happy to issue a letter to that effect so you can proceed with any plans you have for that area." And that's the field right up against 55. So do you have anything further from Mr. Hendler Voss on that T-ball field that abuts 55 Washington Street?
Yes, sir. The only thing that we have from Mr. Seth is their new proposed layout, which is shown in the GDP, with having those 2 fields in the back and relocating those to a more useful layout for Parks and Rec, and not utilizing the front field.
Okay, and is it your understanding, based upon this email, that they could release that portion of the lease for you to develop at any time you so see fit?
To our understanding, yes, sir. Now, based off what is in the agenda packet from Ms. Lockhart, and apparently with Mr. Weir's conversation as well, there seems to be some conflicting information that Mr. Ross has not passed on to us from our July meeting. It was, how can we fit this within your GDP? And he had some changes, and those were the ones that we made there in August when we submitted on August 17th. And we have not heard from Mr. Seth stating that things have changed or that they now want to use the front ball field either.
I would also like to point out that we did request to attend the meeting with the county and the town, and we were not allowed to attend by the town.
Do we have anything in writing from that meeting about the front ball field to the town?
We do not. It was a phone call, but I'm happy to reach out to Seth and follow up on our meeting notes and have him confirm in writing what was said. Again, Mr. Weir stated it, but Chris and I and Mr. Weir were all in a phone call conference with the county. They stated they still use the field and they do intend to use the backfields. They also stated that they require a certain amount of parking. To backtrack a little bit, in 2018, part of the issue that was arisen from, I think, that email chain was there was a parking issue on site. So that was being addressed. They did approach the Architectural Review Board and request for fencing options to go in as well, because again, they were having parking issues, but at no time was the town ever notified or made aware that the front ball field was no longer in use or desired to be used.
Well, were other councilmen invited or just Mr. Weir on that phone call?
It was open to any council or planning commissioners that wanted to attend. I do believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Weir, that day that he happened to pop in and we were about to start the phone call.
It was on a Tuesday, I believe, which is my check review day, yes.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting here listening. I'm hearing a lot of he said, she said. I'm not really interested in he said, she said. I'm interested in what's in writing. And I'm looking at this proffer amendment for recreational field use, and it clearly stipulates how this could sunset after 10 years and develop the property consistent with B1 zoning regulations. I'm looking at an email, again, from Mr. Hendler Voss, dated Monday, April 23rd, 2018 at 9:22 a.m. And he says very plainly, "Good morning, you're correct about the T-ball field location. This will not require BOCS approval. We simply won't exercise that portion of the lease. I'm happy to issue a letter so that to the effect that you can proceed with any plans you have for that area." It seems pretty open-ended to me.
Can I add a couple things?
When I'm done.
Okay, you're not done, okay.
I'm not done. So we're talking in circles here. We're getting into semantics. We need to know what's in writing. I'm looking at what's in writing, what has been presented. I'm not really interested in personal feelings, I'm not really interested in recollections. I'm interested in what's in writing. You run a lot of danger when you go back, I recollect the intent. The intent should be put in black and white writing. Okay? I'm in real estate. There's a lot of intent, and you go by what's in contractual law. So we're getting conflicting reports. This Mr. Hendler Voss, this gentleman is telling the applicant one thing, he's telling us something else. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Yes, ma'am.
Can you say the date again of that email?
Looking at right here, it's Monday, April 23rd, 2018.
Is there the email that precedes it? Because, and I'm just trying to gather facts here, is, we don't have what question was asked unless they included that in that email chain.
Well, he says here, I'm happy to issue a letter so you can proceed with any plans you have for that area. I mean,
That could also be the sidewalk area between 55 and the ball field,
but he doesn't say that.
but we don't know without the question,
Of course.
is what
Mr. Chairman,
the planner
I
is
have,
trying to articulate.
my apologies. I have the email thread if you'd like me to read it.
Sure. Then we'll go back to Mr. Benyay.
Would you like it in full, or would you like just
I
a
like it
portion?
in full. Might as well get the full version.
Tuesday, April 17, 2018, 11:53 a.m. Dr. Landry, I am recommending a few changes that I believe will help. We are prepared to relocate most of GHBL's teams to another site starting Monday, April 23rd, thereby significantly reducing the number of vehicle traffic at QBE. This would leave just a few travel teams playing Tuesday and Thursday evenings between 5:30 and 7:30. We have placed temporarily no parking signs along the perimeter of the drive and unmarked paved areas. We are fabricating larger campaign-style boards which can be staked in. Our rangers will patrol the property Tuesday and Thursday evening between 5:30 and 7:30. Ultimately, we have placed total parking enforcement in the hands of GHBL. They are expected to take the lead with us as backup. If things do not improve, I understand and support your need to move on. GHBL confirmed that they do not have a use for the T-ball field, and due to safety concerns, We do not envision offering it to other teams. Therefore, we are prepared to remove that field from the lease. We will not permit the fields for any other league, we will not permit the fields for any other league at this time. Therefore, any use occurring outside the time slots referenced above, assuming a half hour on both ends, is unauthorized use and you will have the right and responsibility of enforcement. Please let me know what you think. Mr. Landry replied on Sunday, April 22nd, 2018. Seth, I appreciate your attention to working to resolve this issue. I can support the plan below, but I would like a little further clarification. Number one, you referenced the T-ball field. I am assuming this field up against State Highway 55, John Marshall's / Washington Street, and the corner of Blight Drive. I want to ensure we are talking about the same area. Do you have a plan with GHBL that will provide some escalating penalties of offenses, fine per documented incident, that is addressed by either my staff or the Rangers and not GHBL, to the point that all understand the breaking point? I appreciate determining measurements and thinking this will help everyone understand where the lines are. Do you have any time frame that you think we can put this together? And do you require BOCS approval to make these changes? And then, Mr. Chairman, what you read from Monday, April 23rd, 2018. Good morning. You are correct about the T-ball field location. This will not require BOCS approval. We simply won't exercise that portion of the lease. I'm happy to issue a letter to that effect so you can proceed with any plans you may have for that area. Hopefully that clarifies it.
Okay, I was going to address something else, but I also reached out, I have it in writing to Mr. Seth. I reached out to him basically for the same exact thing that you just mentioned, and this is what he says. Good afternoon, Mr. Bayener. Our current lease for the ball fields does not expire until 2023, and we have not made any changes to lease to date, including the T-ball field out of play. However, we've had exploratory discussions with the owner about the possibility of modifying the lease. Neither my office or the County Board of Supervisors has not approved or endorsed anything the owner has submitted to the town. Okay. But earlier what I was going to say is that I don't think the proffer statement, the valid proffer statement, is tied to any specific lease. It's independent of any specific lease. Okay. And also, I think earlier you indicated there's some sort of a sunset provision. So if you don't mind, can you please tell us where that sunset provision is?
Sir, show me where it doesn't end. The letter you just read said it ends in 2013, or 2023.
No, this is related to the ball field.
This is the lease for the ball fields in
Yes.
2013.
But,
Well, he's contradicting himself all over the place because we just read stuff from 2018. So what is it?
I think
As staff, I would go with the most recent is probably where they're at, just because something was stated 2 years ago. I don't know if that
this
is still true today, but the one that we received in 2020.
Show me where in a court of law that would stand up, where something was stated 240 some odd years ago that isn't relevant today. That doesn't make any sense.
That letter was
You mean
never
like the
provided.
Constitution?
I said, I didn't mention that.
I don't want to add to the he said, she said, but we did at that time have the issue of parking on the site. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what brought up that email chain in April of 2018 was the parking issues on site with GHBL, where Sean Landry or QBE, HPP reached out to work to get a better parking arrangement with the baseball teams because they were parking in the back curve. Does that ring a bell?
No, I remember the parking, but
Right,
this
so what I'm
went much
asking
further
is-
than the parking.
Did that email start there? Because there was parking issues that you guys reached out to Seth to get him to square that away.
Correct. So the email started with in regards to the parking, but also had other subject matters in regard to it, which one of those was them not utilizing the front ball field. I do have another email in writing from July 7th
Can
of
I-
2020.
one
Yes,
second?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I think what I'm trying to get at there is, yes, in 2018, that may have been stated. However, there were other issues that were originally brought up that got them to that discussion point. So they are saying one thing in 2018, they're saying another thing to, a citizen as well as staff in 2020. Maybe one of the best courses of action is to have them come in and have a statement on record or file a statement in written record to date of 2020.
I guess going back, I'm not trying to be contrary, but why would we call about a lease where we wouldn't invite the leasee to participate? Why would we discuss a lease?
We were not discussing the lease.
We're not discussing the lease.
Part of the
The
lease.
questions that were simply asked were, do you use the fields? Is the public allowed to use the fields? So what we were trying to clarify is that at several of our public hearings, there was a statement made by the applicant that said that the public could not use those fields and that they could be kicked off at any time. So we were simply trying to clarify those statements of, are the fields in use? Can the public use it? If a public member wants to take their children up there and toss the ball, do they have to have a permit? That was another thing that was stated, is that you were required to have a permit to be on the fields. And then what kind of parking? And then we went into a further discussion of what kind of park use is needed in this area, and did they want to continue a use in this area? And he further stated that yes, they wanted to continue use, they're looking for more land. They asked if we had any availability at our park, and they asked if we knew of any other open parcels in the town or area in which they could pursue uses.
But we discussed the lease. The whole genesis of the conversation was to find out what the applicant is wanting to do.
So our conversation was between the town and Prince William County in regards to park and recreation and what their intent is in the future. And unfortunately, yes, the only space they have in town is included with this leasee. However, that was not the main area of concern. We just asked what the future plans for Western Prince William County and the Parks and Recreation had. That's why I actually had provided a contact just outside of town with a church is not going to develop a substantial acreage with Seth Handler Voss, is because we had that conversation. So this was a conversation between the town and the county in regards to park and recreation. It wasn't specific to the lease. We just had a discussion of what their intent moving forward was.
But you can understand where I'm getting. You're making phone calls with no written documentation. I'm not saying that what you were told, you're not reporting it accurately. Mr. Benier's getting another email that directly conflicts what they're getting. I mean, where's the truth in all this?
So right now, what we're saying is staff received a phone call that included a planning commissioner, a town council member, and another planning commissioner received an email with written documentation that says one thing, and the applicant is providing something different from over 2 years ago.
Well, he's only providing what the gentleman wrote.
Which is different and from 2 years ago.
That's my point.
That's the facts. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have an updated email that would be able to maybe set Mr. Kuhn here, allow him to see this here. So on July 7th, 2020, good afternoon. This is from Mr. Seth. Good afternoon. I attached a concept for a layout that would meet our needs. The layout would require additional area beyond what your engineer proposed. The highlighted area denotates a potential lease area. We would look to have some dedicated parking. We are happy to discuss further if you are interested. So this clearly shows, the highlighted area shows where the potential lease area would be. And that is what is depicted on the GDP as a supporting document. And that was from July 7th of 2020.
And is their intent to move forward after 2023?
I'm sorry, sir?
Is that their intent to move forward after the 2023 lease is over, is to renew a lease with that highlighted space?
Possibly, or even renegotiate a brand new lease that would put a longevity. The reason why they were looking.
Well, this conversation was specifically after they were reviewing our GDP and how they could utilize the space. So the entire conversation is around how we could repurpose per our proffer amendment, their use of the space. And that's been the conversation, and honestly, the way I hear this email does not conflict. We don't have a current agreement that changes the use, because we have to get the proffer amended before we can execute a lease amendment with the county. So everything has been done along those lines. I do want to address, as far as discussing with the county has a commercial lease with us on our property. There is no way that you can have a conversation with the county about the utilization of their space within Haymarket that does not address contractual issues that we have between us and our commercial entity. The discussion of parking, which is specifically listed within the lease, and the bounds of what the county can and cannot request, is a clear item that was also discussed. Again, I would further say we requested to be in presence specifically to avoid any confusion that could color the information that is being provided. That was denied. We were not allowed to be there. We did express concerns about what would happen if we were not there, and this is exactly what occurred. And that was on the town's choice.
I got a question. Why were you denied that opportunity?
Chairman, if I can just interject here, this was a discussion that was forwarded to our town attorney, and it was discussed between our town attorney and their attorney. So I would say at this time, Chris, please step in as you feel necessary, but that decision and that discussion was out of town staff's hands. It was with our town attorney, and he could best answer those questions on our behalf.
You still chose to have the meeting after the attorneys discussed. So, I mean, the decision to have the meeting was yours. It was not the attorney's decision.
Anyway, just to get past that, the email that he references also indicates that Prince William County, just as we stated, has a plan to continue moving forward with utilizing park space here in the town of Haymarket. So that just further verifies our phone call that we had. So,
Mr. Ware.
Couple of things. First off, are you asserting that the town of Haymarket as a jurisdiction is not able to consult with a neighboring jurisdiction regarding matters of land use or policy or budgetary issues or the plans of the county? Because if you are making that assertion, I'd love to see the legal basis for it. Your attorney's been advised, our attorney's aware. That's not and quite frankly, why we're even having this discussion with respect to this proffer amendment, it is beyond me, because we're getting lost. We're not seeing the forest for the trees here. So let's get back to the real issue. I mean, let's stop focusing on the tot lot and parking and everything else. The real issue here is a change in the proffers. And the change in the proffer is applicant removes paragraph 1 from the original proffer. Paragraph 1 is very clear in the existing proffer. There is no end date to the recreational use. There's no lease date reference. There's no end date. The relevant language is so long as a public or private partner is willing to enter into a commercially reasonable form of lease agreement at a fair market price. It's open-ended. There is no end date. That is the proffer that was required by the town. That was the proffer required by the town as part of a legislative action that created an entitlement with a monetary value for the applicant and is, regardless of how long ago it was done, legally binding at this point until the town undoes it. And that's what the request is. Now, have opinions changed over time? It certainly doesn't sound like it. I was here in 2013. I remember the arguments and why the language was changed. You seem to think the reasoning, the rationale for it is irrelevant. I don't. The language was created for a reason and to serve a purpose. I don't believe that purpose has diminished. I'm not in favor of amending the proffer to what is essentially gives them an end date of August 13, 2023, given the dearth of recreational fields in western Prince William County. I mean, that's where I stand on the proffer amendment. And I think we need to focus on the real question here rather than getting wrapped around the axle on some details. The question is, do we want to accept proffer amendment that will in essence eliminate the opportunity for recreational fields in perpetuity and instead place a clause in its place that would allow the termination of that recreational field regardless of what the planning office or the planning commission or the Parks and Rec department wants to do with a hard stop date as early as August 13th, 2023. If that's what you guys want, if you want to establish that as a possible, earliest date at which the recreational fields could be eliminated, and eliminate the clause that I would argue allows them to be in perpetuity, so long as there is a public or private partner willing to enter into an agreement, then why don't we just move along with this and dispose of the issue?
I don't want to do that, but something that, based on the previous conversation, we make it seem as if the current proffer statement is related or is tied to somehow to the current lease. That's not the case. We have to disconnect those two. The proffer statement exists as it is, regardless of the current lease.
Well, show me where it says that.
I think if you want to read the
I've read
the
it
proffer
multiple times. That is at the heart of the issue. Does this thing sunset in August of 2023? That is the central issue.
Are you asking in the original proffer or the amended?
I'm looking at the original proffer dated August 1, 2013.
There is no sunset that I'm aware of.
I can't find that either, the sunset date. But I know the current proffer statement indicates the Parks and Recreation as the entity that's currently leasing or they're intending to lease it to. But even if the parks, let's say the Parks and Recreation, has no need for the front ball field, it doesn't automatically mean that the applicant is free and clear in terms of not needing to maintain the park area, the recreation area.
Well, that's exactly what Mr. Handler Voss says in his two emails.
It doesn't say that the town will allow them to take back their proffer, basically. It doesn't state that.
If the county Parks and Recs wants to reduce the acreage they use, that's fine. But as I understand it, under the existing proffers, the applicant would still have to afford the rest of the available recreational acreage to any public or private partner willing to enter into a commercially reasonable form of lease for the remainder of the property.
I agree.
There's no, I mean, it's not, it's for, the applicant will, underscore will, maintain and make available for recreational use approximately 4.51 acres adjacent to the existing school building as illustrated on Exhibit A. The recreational fields will be maintained for recreational field use by the applicant from the date of approval of this proffer by the Haymarket Town Council. It doesn't reference whom the lessee is, and I don't think the town really cares who the lessee is. But there is a requirement for those 4.51 acres to be offered and maintained.
We need we're talking in circles. We need clarification of, in writing, does this lease and proffer end in 2013? I'm under the persuasion that it is. Some of my colleagues, commissioners, say it's not. We're getting conflicting reports from the town staff. We're getting conflicting reports from emails from you. I'm sitting here looking, so what is it?
Mr. Chairman, I'd be more than happy to invite the town attorney to review this and provide either written documentation or he can come to a meeting. So if we do written documentation, then I can provide that to you guys as soon as this week or next week if you'd like.
I mean, because here's the central issue. I want everybody listening to see the central issue. If this sets in 2023, they can, in essence, build by right pretty much anything they want according to our current zoning law. Correct or not correct?
That's not correct to my knowledge, and I'd be more than happy to have the town attorney verify that.
They have by right use.
That's restricted by the proffers.
Is restricted by the proffer.
I understand that, but if the proffer is no longer there, this is all hinging on the proffer, correct?
But they have to wait 1 year. They have to give public or a private entity to enter into a lease agreement.
I understand that. according to this, but you're saying that this thing goes on in perpetuity.
Correct. If Prince William County wanted to enter into a lease in 2023 for 100 years that was in accordance with the
It's a
document,
commercially reasonable form of lease agreement, then they could,
then that, they could do that and move forward.
if
And
the applicant agreed to it.
correct.
That's what the clear language of the
If the
proffer says.
applicant agreed to it.
And it's fair market value, yes.
And what happens if they don't agree to it?
The only condition that I can see here is fair market value.
What happens if they don't agree to it?
Then that's the thing, they don't want to give that a chance. They want to take that option
I'm not
away.
interested in chance, I'm interested
The
in
definition
what's
is in the
law.
proffer. Fair market price will be determined using comparables for similar property within the Haymarket leasing market and not necessarily property within the Haymarket corporate boundary. It's all laid out in the proffer, and that's the issue. The
Well, let me
entirety of
okay,
paragraph
I
one.
understand. Let me tell you something. It takes two people to enter into a lease agreement. You can't force somebody to enter into a lease agreement. It takes two willing parties to enter into a lease agreement. That's real estate contractual law.
Correct.
And all of our opinions go out the window when it comes to real estate contractual law.
We're not involving ourselves in the contract, we're involving ourselves in the existing proffer conditions regarding the development and the previously approved development of the parcel. I mean,
But
we're
we're
wrapping ourselves around the axle on a whole bunch of minutia. The crux of the matter is the entirety of paragraph one and the protections afforded by paragraph one that required or mandated by the council in 2013 are what are being voided. And ultimately, the question is, are we willing to get rid of paragraph one and replace it with the conditions in paragraphs B and C, or are we not?
I understand that, but what happens in August of 2023?
It depends on what we do. If we
It
deny
doesn't
the...
depend on what we do,
Absolutely
it
it
depends
does.
on what's in this proffer.
They have
It
to
does-
wait, they have to wait 1 year.
I understand that.
After that, if they cannot enter into an agreement with a public or entity, or private entity, then they're free and clear in terms of being able to develop the restricted area in accordance with Business One.
And it's clear to me.
I think the planning commission needs to kind of hit a reset button and kind of look at what could be built there by right and what they're proposing to build there.
That's irrelevant to the proffer.
I think that's relevant to the long-range plans of the citizens of
We're
this
not dealing
town.
with a long-range plan, we're dealing with a proffer amendment.
Then what
with
are
a
we dealing
statutory
with? It
requirement.
sounds like it's long-range to me.
It may very well have a long-range impact, but what you're dealing with here is a request for a proffer amendment
We
and the
need
change
cla-
in the conditions.
We need clarification.
I will either, which would you prefer? Have Martin, the town attorney, come to a meeting to have these conversations to you guys and ask the questions, or provide your questions in writing to me by Wednesday, which I will then forward to the attorney to respond to all of them in regards to this proffer amendment, the current one from 2013, and then the one that they are requesting the amendment. It's up to you guys how you want to do it, or if you want to move forward today. But if you really think that the information from the attorney would help, I'm more than happy to do that.
An awful lot of opinion.
Our opinion, this is our interpretation, at least in my case, is my understanding of what I see in writing. It's not
I
my
understand,
opinion.
sir, but your interpretation is opinion if you're not licensed to be able to draft these documents.
But one more thing, since you mentioned long-term plan, right? Again, not to repeat myself, but this is what they indicated when they applied for the rezoning. As the property sits today is suited exactly for the purpose used. As we have developed long-term growth plan that will allow expansion without the disruption of the park use. That's what they indicated to the town. And I've been reviewing the comprehensive plan, so voting to approve this proffer amendment goes against some of the town's goals and objectives. And if you don't mind, let me go through that. So on page 74, one of the goals is develop public facilities to meet the social and recreational needs of the growing town. Objective B, the town's need for recreation is not satisfied by the existing regional facilities. explore joint opportunities with private communities, churches, and Prince William County Park Authority to provide small local facilities. That is what this facility is. So again, voting to approve this proffer amendment goes away, is in conflict of this goal and objective. Okay, page 94. The town is currently in need of neighboring park with adequate playground, softball field, and open play area. That's what's in our comprehensive plan. Again, voting to approve this proffer amendment goes against this. And Appendix B, it looks like, was a survey of the town residents, and there are some interesting things that are, again, are in conflict of approving this proffer amendment. So if I may, availability of location of parks. 60% of the residents are not satisfied. Do you think there is a need for recreation in town? 73% said yes. And again, taking away this park and recreation area goes against the wishes and the needs of the town residents. Thank you.
Welcome. We need clarification. We need to know, does the proffer sunset? Does the proffer go on in perpetuity? Because how can we intelligently vote on this proffer if we don't know what's going to transpire in 3 years? That makes no sense.
So how would you like me to receive questions by Wednesday so I can send it to the attorney, or would you like the attorney to show up at the next meeting?
I think it'd be good for the attorney to show up at the next meeting so the citizens can hear what it is. And they should have the opportunity to get with their attorneys to review their lease.
We're not discussing the lease, we're discussing the proffer amendment.
Well, we are discussing the lease. We just spent an hour discussing it.
But it's irrelevant, it's irrelevant to the proffer.
Proffer amendment is tied to the lease.
It's not.
It is not tied to the lease. That's what the amendment is requesting, and that's what the applicant stated, is that they're trying to tie the proffer amendment with the lease. They've stated that several times today.
We need clarification from the town attorney. If all of us are really trying to do what's best for the citizens of this town, we need to know time frame and what can be built there.
Can we hear from the other planning commission members as to
Sure.
whether we need clarification from the attorney?
I think so.
Yeah.
We need further clarification.
Yes.
Ayush? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Do you think we need clarification from the town attorney as it relates to this proffer amendment?
I mean, anytime we can get any sort of clarification, considering not all of us have as deep of knowledge as others, having that clarified in a legal sense as well as what our bylaws, as well as what we are allowed to do, having that cleared up can never really hurt, so I'm for it.
So what are we asking the town attorney to clarify?
So he will come to the next meeting and answer the questions that you guys have in regards to the current proffer agreement or proffer statement as of 2013, and then what would change with the proffer amendment.
We can work with the clerk to kind of summarize this last hour discussion and get him some of the background discussion so he's ready to give his statements.
How about getting an official input from the Parks and Recreation? Is that also?
We need.
I don't think it's relevant to the issue at hand. We're dealing with a,
I know, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter who leases it.
Well, I don't know.
And I don't care how much they lease it for.
I don't know how it's not, I don't know how you can say that, because we as a town called the county for clarification. We have emails that are contradict. I'm not saying you're not telling the truth, please hear me. But he's telling us one thing, he's telling them something else as early as July of this year, or as late as July of this year. I mean, what is it?
I just don't think that's materially relevant to the question at hand, which is changing the provisions of the proffer.
Is it possible?
Who holds the lease is somewhat irrelevant. Actually, it's entirely irrelevant.
Is it possible for one of you two to read the current proffer statement, so maybe that will help the full proffer statement, the valid one? Or
We need to get the
Or I
attorney
can
to
read it. Or I can read
verify
it.
what it is. We've read enough. We need the attorney to come in here and tell us what this proffer means. So I want the attorney at the next meeting, please. Because in good conscience, I can't ask the commissioners to vote on something that we don't have clarification on. And we're certainly not doing the applicant, any applicant, the due respect if we don't know what we're voting on. Because none of us would want to be in their position. I listen to citizens' time. I'm not discounting the citizens who voice their opinion. I wish more would. But the folks on Blight don't control the planning of the town of Haymarket. Virginia is a buyer beware state. They should have done their due diligence, either the real estate agent, when they bought those properties, to what could transpire down the road. Now, that may sound cold-hearted, but that's the law.
I'm also going to take a little bit of umbrage at that. I mean, when I bought my house, I did my due diligence and looked at the long-range land use plan for the county. And what you can't factor in is that at any given point in time, and this has happened locally, and this isn't a statement about anybody in this room or any applicant before the town. It's just a general statement with respect to doing your due diligence on that sort of thing. At any point in time, and many people in the county have experienced this, a rezoning application can be filed that fundamentally changes the land use of your adjoining or neighboring property. And despite all of the due diligence you've done, and everything that the county has put in their comp plan, in their long-range land use plan, all the decisions that you make based on that snapshot in time when you buy your property, go out the window with a rezoning. So, some of these people have lived in Blight Drive since, Pace West was being used as or off of Blight Drive in the Villages, since Pace West was still being used as a school, and there was no contemplation of that parcel ever being commercially developed. So to assert that they should have done their due diligence and not be prepared for this eventuality really bothers me, because it's not their fault.
And had they done their due diligence, what they would have come across is this proffer statement, which restricts development of the land in front of their homes.
When you buy a home on a strip of land next to a major artery, abutting a public park across the street from a commercial business venture, you're taking a risk. You can disagree with it all you want, you're taking a risk.
I don't think that's fair to the property owners.
I mean, I would suggest that the majority of the comments, both written and verbal tonight, came from the villages at Haymarket or Haymarket Station, if I'm not mistaken.
And I live in the villages of Haymarket.
So, I mean, and they were there long before.
I was there in 2004. I was the seventh house built in there when it was a school. Okay? We need clarification to do what's right. What are the by rights that this applicant can build minus an SUP?
That's not relevant to the proffer.
It is relevant.
The question is a proffer amendment, not a by right use.
Mr. Weir, it is relevant to the people who live in my community and who who live on Blight to what can go in there.
We're
That
not
is
talking
always-
use, we're talking preservation of recreational fields. The use section is the SUP application. We can get to that in due course.
We need clarification.
Mistaken, back in 2017, Chairman, I believe one of the reasons that was their GDP back then was approved is because of the by right, being able to add 2 additional stories, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think that was the argument that you made back then.
I'm going by what's in our zoning.
But that's the thing, the by right is
You're saying
should-
by
should-
right's pointless?
No. In terms of being able to develop that current restricted property, because there is a restriction on it. So by right does not come into play for that restricted area. That's what I'm trying to say.
I respectfully disagree. We're talking in circles. We need clarification from the attorney.
And he'll be at the next meeting.
Thank you.
So can I ask the applicant, can you tell us why you were not able to go forward with what was approved in 2017? And I think that was adding 2 additional stories to the historic building.
Yes, sir, market change with the economy.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would move we defer further consideration of rezoning 201300528 and associated SUP 2020-002 until our next regularly scheduled meeting, pending, or no. And that staff, well, I'll deal with that separately. I deferred both and further consideration of both until the October meeting, October 19th meeting.
Provided we get, at that meeting, we get clarification.
That will be a
from the
separate
town's
motion
attorney.
or separate directive. Because if we're going to make it incumbent on the attorney, and the attorney chooses not to comport or comply, then we're right back where we are right now. We might as well just dispose of it. But I want to direct the attorney separately.
All right, we have a motion, a second.
I have an alternative motion.
So it's the will of the planning commission not to seek, from what I'm hearing, it's the will of the planning commission not to seek clarity so we can make a decision based upon what's in this lease and proffer statement for the SUP.
In that case, Mr. Chairman, I have an alternate motion. Bear with me because it's long. Whereas the Haymarket Planning Commission is empowered to review land use applications to ensure the health, safety, or general welfare of the public, and whereas the enumeration of particular powers by the Charter of the Town of Haymarket shall not be deemed to be exclusive, and in addition to the powers enumerated therein or implied thereby, or appropriate to the exercise of such powers as is intended, that the Haymarket Planning Commission shall have and may exercise all powers which under the Constitution and laws of this state it would be competent for the Charter to specifically to enumerate, and whereas for the purposes of promoting the health, safety, or general welfare of the public and of further accomplishing the objectives of Code of Virginia, Section 15.2, 2200, Chapter 58 was adopted as the zoning ordinance of the town, and whereas a portion of the police power of the Commonwealth has been delegated to the town to be exercised reasonably in determining the manner of its development, the state legislature has left much discretion to the town in making such determinations, relying on the local governing body's knowledge of local conditions and the needs of its individual communities. Public necessity, health, safety, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice provide guiding factors for the council in its quest to exercise its legislative mandate in formulating a reasonable policy of town planning for the general good and welfare. And whereas the Virginia Code, a zoning under the Virginia Code, its zoning ordinance may include provisions for the granting of special exceptions in the governing body of any county, city, or town, may reserve unto itself the right to issue such special exceptions, and whereas the Supreme Court of Virginia has consistently held that the exercise of that power to be a legislative rather than an administrative act a fortiori, the decision of the legislative body when framing its zoning ordinances to place certain uses in the special exception or conditional use category is a legislative action. Board of Supervisors, Fairfax County v. Southland Corp., 224 VA 514, 297 SC 2D 718, 1982, and whereas the Haymarket Planning Commission has reviewed a proposed proffer amendment to rezoning 2013-0528, and whereas in the proffer amendment statement dated June 1, 2020, the applicant amended the proffered acreage for park preservation from 4.51 acres to 2.06 acres, and whereas in a proffer amendment statement dated June 24, 2020, the applicant amended the proffered acreage for park preservation from 4.51 acres to 0.0 acres, and whereas the current deed of lease for use of the park acreage entered into between Haymarket Properties Group LLC and the Board of County Supervisors of Prince William County, Virginia, will not expire until at least August 13, 2023, and whereas the proffers dated August 1, 2013 provided that the recreational fields will be maintained for recreational field use so long as a public or private partner is willing to enter into a commercially reasonable form of lease agreement at a fair market price, and whereas the applicant intends to terminate the recreational use as early as August 13, 2023, and whereas upon information and belief, the applicant has not entered into a contract to sell the project, and whereas the Prince William County Parks and Recreation Department asserts that it is currently making use of all of the proffered fields, desires to continue such use, and is lacking in additional park acreage in the western portion of Prince William County, and whereas the applicant has not fully complied with the conditions of the 2013 proffer statement, and whereas the Planning Commission finds that each of the foregoing grounds can be deemed severable, and whereas as a matter of good zoning practice, the approval of the proposed amendment to REZ 2013-0528 would not serve the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Haymarket Planning Commission that in order to promote the health, safety, or general welfare of the public, it is recommended that the proposed proffer amendment to rezoning 2013-0528 be denied.
How can we deny something we don't even know what we're denying?
Need a second on the motion
I understand we do.
before you can discuss.
Second. I third.
So how can we discuss something when we have contrary opinion without fact?
I think there's plenty of fact in the native record. I mean, I'm comfortable with it. I was comfortable with kicking the can down the road 30 days, but I guess nobody else had an interest in doing that.
So as commissioners, we have no clarification on this to give this its due diligence. So the motion is basically we just terminate it.
Well, the motion is to continue moving forward with the current proffer statement that was established in 2013.
All we're doing is recommending denial of the proffer amendment.
But the whole central question is, what is the proffer amendment? We just spent an hour and a half talking about it.
Exactly. We've spent an hour and a half discussing it, and we still don't know what it means. So I think at this point, just like the recommendation or motion is to deny it. And
some of us, I think, understand the amendment, the proposed amendment, and the difference from the current proffer statement. Some of us do. So.
Well, let's put it in writing, what he just read, draft it up so we can look at
I'll
it.
forward it to you electronically.
And we'll take a 5-minute recess to get it drafted up.
No, it's already drafted.
I don't see it.
It's on my computer and I just read it.
Well, I want to see it in writing for everybody to look at. So we'll take a 5-minute recess while it's in writing and provided to every commissioner.
Sorry.
All right, Chairman, you ready to go?
Yes, ma'am. All right, we'll call back into session. All right, we have a motion from Mr. Weir, and we have a second and a third. Everybody has a copy of this, so I'll let you look at it for a couple minutes, and then we'll do a roll call vote. And this is strictly for the proffer amendment on 14600 Washington Street, correct?
That is correct. Where's the other one? Now I've lost the other one.
Chairman, can we give Mr. Kuhn just a minute to send it to Mr. Correll's email?
Yes, ma'am.
Real quick.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, where did I put it? Huh. All right, how the hell did I lose it?
Ayush, just let us know when you're done reviewing it.
Emily, is there a packet for 7.4 or 7.3? I seem to have lost it. Ah, I found one. I got it. Thank you.
I have a question while we're looking at this. So the last statement, now therefore be it resolved by the Haymarket Planning Commission that in order to promote the health, safety, or general welfare of the public, it's recommended that the proffer amendment to REZ number 201-30528 be denied. We don't want any language in there without further clarification from the attorneys.
I don't think it's necessary.
I don't know how we can say that. We're denying something without the full body of knowledge. That just doesn't seem prudent.
Ready, Ayush? Ready?
Ayush, can you hear me? I can't hear him.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
He can hear us, but we can't hear. He's finished reading.
Ayush, can you hear us? Ayush, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I don't.
Okay.
That was nice and clear.
All right. So discussion? I want to go on record, we're voting on something that we don't have total clarity on. Because we just discussed it for the last 2 hours. All right, roll call vote, please.
Walker.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
Cottle.
No.
Hallett. Aye. Banyang.
Aye.
Corral.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-1. Next order of business. SUP, QBE SUP, 30 condos, 14600 Washington Street.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Given that the SUP is dependent upon the passage, or largely dependent upon the adoption of the proffer amendment to REZ 20130528, I would move the Planning Commission defer consideration of SUP 2020-002 to a date uncertain pending final action by the Town Council on the proffer amendment to REZ 20130528.
Wrap that up, please.
Oh,
Do you already have it written?
I've already got it written, yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to write it and email it to you, or do you want to write it? I'll just, yeah, it'll be easier if I do it that way. I can type faster than I can write. If I don't fat finger the keys. On the way. can forward it to him. A. Correll at townofhaymarket.org. It's on the way, Ish.
Thank you, sir.
Clarify that there's a motion on the floor, but no second as of right now.
Second.
All right, discussion. So we're going to leave this at a totally open date. So we're not even willing to give the applicant a timeline within a couple months.
It depends on town council action. I mean, as an explanatory note, it doesn't make much sense to me to go through further consideration of it this evening if it is in part contingent upon the proffer amendment being adopted. And, you know, if that's a question that's still up in the air and has now been referred to the town council for a decision, it would seem a misuse of our time and the applicant's time to go through all the motions tonight if the town council chooses to deny the proffer amendment, which would dramatically, I suspect, impact the application. And once the town council takes action, the planning office can apprise the applicant of that action, whether it's for approval or denial, and proceed from there.
I mean, I understand that to have an SUP that's tied to having buildable land per the proffer amendment, I understand one's tied to the other. I just don't like the word uncertain. I mean, there has to be some type of timeline, 3 months, 4 months.
I don't know when the town council is going to address this. And I would assume that upon addressing it, I'm assuming that it's going to be at the next, well, no, they've got to have a public hearing scheduled, correct? Is there a public hearing scheduled currently?
There is not currently, so I was just looking at the calendar with our public hearing notices that need to go out. The earliest we can get it to the town council is the November 2nd meeting. It would also be put on the work session, most likely just as an informational item on October 26th. So November 2nd for the public hearing at town council.
If it'll make you, I mean, I don't have a problem amending the motion to, what is the November Planning Commission date?
That will be on the 16th.
I would change it to, I move the Planning Commission defer consideration of SUP 2020/002 to November 16th, 2020, pending final action by the Town Council on the proffer amendment to REZ 20130528.
Okay, I think that does a better job because the applicant needs to have some type of timeline.
It needs a second to the motion, or to the...
I second that.
Yeah.
All right, discussion. All right, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I do have one thing, is the only reason why I do have an issue with this is that if the town council does not make a decision on the November meeting.
That's why it says pending final approval, or pending final action.
So just so we're all on the same page, if they do not make a decision on November 2nd, then would the planning commission expect to see it on the 16th or bump it until the meeting immediately following?
We would have to address that at the November meeting, but we'd have to reschedule it at the November meeting, yes.
Okay.
So we may have to make another affirmative motion at the next meeting if it doesn't get approved.
Cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Weir, why don't you read it again?
Move that the Planning Commission defer consideration of SUP 2020/002 to November 16, 2020, pending final action by the Town Council on the proffer amendment to REZ 20130528.
All right, second, we've already had. Further discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Walker. Aye. Weir.
Aye.
Cottle.
Yes.
Hallett.
Yes.
Benyang.
Aye.
Correll.
Yes.
Thank you for your all's time this evening.
All right, thank you for coming, I appreciate it. All right, so we're on new business, correct?
You want to do the minute approval first, sir?
I'm sorry?
You want to do the minute approval
Sure,
first?
we can do the minutes approval. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, moving on, new business.
The only new business item I have is kind of an update. Columbia Gas will be coming in next week to finish up our Jefferson Street improvement project. We had a little issue with having to relocate the gas line there, so we are finally getting this resolved. We hope to be done with it within 1 week's time for their portion, and then the contractor will come back in and finish the remaining work for the project to close out. That's all I have right now for new business.
Old business?
Old business, as you saw tonight, Van Meter came again. If you have any questions or concerns for the Van Meter project, please send me an email or give me a phone call, stop in. I will relay these questions and concerns to the applicant so that when they come back to us in the October meeting, as long as they're prepared, we'll have the final discussions there and can nail everything down. We obviously have some paving and milling going on right out on Washington Street. This is something that was planned with VDOT per their paving schedule. We do have discussions tomorrow with a representative from VDOT regarding the crosswalks and what will go back in place of what was previously there. Speaking to the stamped asphalt or the brick crosswalks that we had prior to the milling work. And we'll also figure out the schedule and when we can expect for this project to be done. Also, just outside of town, on the other side of QBE, if you have gone that way recently, you probably noticed they cleared the land. Van Meter is moving forward with Robinson Manor, which is the larger property that kind of accompanies, if you will, ours, Robinson Village. So that was previously approved by the county, and they're moving forward with that. It does still include the roundabout, and that roundabout work will take place, it was starting today through November 30th near the post office area, so Gillis Way Road right there. So maybe just share with your neighbors to maybe avoid that area for a couple months. And then we will get updates from them as we can. And as for other projects, we just kind of have ongoing things. If you guys have any questions, you know how to reach me. And then the last item, kind of old business we've been talking about for a bit, is doing some notices of violations and property maintenance discussions. So that is in the works. We are moving forward with getting letters ready as well as notices to send out to our property owners.
All right, ARB update.
Ayush, do you want to do the ARB update, or would you like for me to do that one?
Can you guys still hear me or no?
Yep, we can.
We can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, so having issues figuring out what's the location of my computer, trying to figure out what's as for the ARB, I don't think there was anything major in the last meeting. We had some conversations about possibly getting a love sign, which Emily's looking into, like a Virginia love sign, so that we could see to bring more people into the town, and had some conversations about where that could go, how we would utilize it, and possibly involve the community, such as the schools, to maybe design it and have a rotating design, and what the cost of that would be and what the logistics would be. Other than that, we had some conversations about the town's gateway and monument sign, which we, as the ARB, are planning on looking on, I think, further, because we had some progress on that. So because it's a new ARB, we're probably going to have to relook at it, just so the current ARB agrees with what previous ARB already agreed on, or had agreed on. I think other than that, that was about it. Yeah.
All right, town council update.
Obviously, the town council's somewhat preoccupied with the budget right now, so that's sort of taking priority on everything else. For what it's worth, I took a pay cut on the planning commission slot. Apparently, I was being overpaid, and I had made them reduce that. Other than that, I think the only thing that really applies to the planning commission is it is likely that we are going to get tasked with a review of the zoning ordinance. So I would suggest that everyone familiarize themselves with it and note any conflicts, omissions, or deficiencies that you find, and that will be a long-term discussion we have, probably starting in October, if not November, I think. Depends on when the council pushes the action down the downhill. That's it.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye.